Chapter 2807. But under Mayan's gaze, it doesn't dare to refuse. It can only aggrievedly take out a reddish-brown stone from the storage ring on its claw. The moment they see this stone, everyone from Mu Lu Pavilion holds their breath. It's their sacred stone. Mayan also suddenly widens her eyes, her heart pounding. She doesn't know what this stone is, but inexplicably, there's a surge of extreme uneasiness in her heart. It's as if that stone contains something that makes her feel fear from the bottom of her bones. Mayan, what is that? She hears Qi Huang's frantic voice. Mayan composes herself and replies with her divine sense. Do you know this? I haven't seen it before, but I think I've seen it before. I don't know. Qi Huang's voice is sharp and messy. Mayan looks into the space and sees that his face is deathly pale, his expression panicked. Thick black gas begins to gush out from his body. The entire space of the Tian Mo Qin is violently shaken by this surging black gas, and countless tiny vortexes appear. Little Phoenix and Little Chick are frightened. They huddle together and curl up in the corner, making pitiful whimpering sounds. Qi Huang! Mayan is startled and quickly shouts, Qi Huang, calm down. Do you want to tear down my Tian Mo Qin space? Hearing Mayan's voice, the black gas around Qi Huang slowly converges. The space of the Tian Mo Qin also gradually returns to normal. Mayan breathes a sigh of relief and quickly pacifies. Isn't it just a broken stone? Is there a need to be this scared? You even said that you're an ancient artifact spirit. Who said that Ben Zun was scared? Qi Huang stomps his feet in anger. Mayan, don't slander me. When was Ben Zun afraid? Isn't it just a broken stone? As the two are talking, the situation outside suddenly changes. Qi has just taken out Mu Lu Pavilion's sacred stone and is about to reluctantly hand it over to Yuan Lan. Who knows, it still hasn't moved. The invisible barrier that originally separated the unclean abyss from the outside suddenly shakes violently. The thick black fog in the unclean abyss seems to have gone mad, madly pounding in the direction of the sacred stone. Not good. How could this be? What happened? Crack. The barrier couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. The thick black mist in the unclean abyss was no longer obstructed and rushed out of the mountain path. The first to be devoured were the villagers of Yuanwu village. No, don't come over. I don't want to become a monster again. Save me. Goddess immortal. Save me. Woo woo woo. Clang. The sound of the zither rang out, as if it was the sound of a powerful army. In the next moment, a figure clad in snow-white clothes appeared in front of all the villagers of Yuanwu village. The girl's figure was so slender and frail, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. But at this moment, it was so indestructible. It was as if one person alone could shoulder all the dangers and the lives of each and every one of them. Divine hands weaving the heavens activated. Star curtain activated. Cloud Skynet activated. The third layer of Star Domain activated. The rousing sound of the zither blends all of Mayan's spiritual power and converges into a wall of sound. It replaces the original barrier and blocks the black fog. But it was not enough. The black mist in the untainted abyss was too powerful. The array that Mayan hastily created simply couldn't withstand it. Her face turns pale inch by inch, and even her lips lose their last trace of blood. Chapter 2808. However, it was still unable to stop the black fog that was surging over. Mu Yan's eyes turned cold. The 7 absolute swords flew out of her body and turned into 7 colorful swords. They directly formed a sword net in front of the black fog. However, the 7 absolute sword was her natal sword. When the black fog attacked the 7 absolute sword, it was also attacking her origin and spirit. Mu Yan spits out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not take a single step back. When the villagers of Yuanwu village saw this, tears streamed down their faces. Miss June, when Huanglang screamed, hurry up and leave. Don't worry about us. That's right, fairy maiden. It doesn't matter if Xiao AI dies. Xiao AI's life isn't worth your life. Damn it, Lung Yuma cursed. What are we still standing there for? Hurry up and help little junior sister. As he spoke, he lifted the red lotus soul-snatching saber and rushed forward. Ling Yuxing's speed is even faster than her. In the blink of an eye, he has already arrived at Mayan's side. Qinjiu and Chu Moli were next. A trace of hesitation flashed through Chu Moli's eyes. However, in the end, he still took out a silver longbow and slowly pulled the strings of the zither towards the black mist. Seeing Mayan's group of 5 recklessly blocking the black mist from the untainted abyss, Hong Lan was in a daze, unable to come back to his senses. She subconsciously wanted to strum the harp and rush forward, but was held back by Yi Yun and Chu Guangquan. Saintess, be careful. The unclean abyss is rioting. It's too dangerous here. We must leave immediately with the Saint Stone. But if the god-slaying shamans from the pure abyss don't come out, the entire Horton tribe will be in danger. The Cleansing Delight Pavilion was supposed to be the guardian of the northern continent. But now, a few foreign cultivators were risking their lives for the safety of the Horton tribe while they fled. How could this be justified? Chu Guangquan's eyes were very calm. He said lightly, "This is not the first time the unclean abyss is rioting, but as long as the holy stone is enshrined in the god-praying tower, the rioting will not last long. At most, the surrounding villages will suffer." Yi Yun added, "Compared to the lives of a few villagers, your safety and the holy stone are more important." "That's right, Saintess, let's go back quickly. We must prioritize Cleansing Lu Pavilion." Hearing that Cleansing Joy Pavilion had to be prioritized, only then did Blue Orchid slowly calm down. She clenched her fists and told herself over and over again, yes, Mulu Pavilion is the most important. As long as the Cleansing Delight Pavilion remained strong, it could protect the entire tribe and ensure peace and tranquility in the northern continent. The sacrifice of a few villages and a few hundred civilians was worth it. As she thought of this, her expression turned cold. He reached out to grab the Saint Stone on Qi Wen's claw. In the entire Cleansing Joy Pavilion, she was the only one who did not suffer too much of a backlash when she touched the Saint Stone with her bare hands. Qi Wen came back to her senses and realized that the people of the Carefree sect were in danger, and this danger was caused by the Nightmare Stone. It let out a loud cry and was about to retrieve the Nightmare Stone. "Bastard, you want to go back on your word? If you don't hand over the Saint Stones, I'll take your dog life." Chu Guangquan furiously raised his lusheng and smashed it towards Qi Wen. Qi Wen was startled, and she hurriedly enlarged her body in an attempt to dodge. Unexpectedly, Chu Guangquan's lusheng accidentally smashed onto the boulder. The Nightmare Stone flew towards the unclean abyss. In a split second, the black mist that was originally suppressed by Mayan and the others was like a water surface that had a boulder thrown into it, turning into raging waves. Mayan's complexion changed greatly. She raised her hand, and the sound of the zither rang out, pushing Lung Yuma and the others away. Chapter 28:09. It's already too late for Mayan to dodge, so she simply clenches her teeth and no longer retreats. Isn't it just a god punishing shaman? Do you think she's afraid? Junior sister. However, the expected impact of the rancid black fog did not come. Instead, it was replaced by countless sharp swords that pierced through the clouds like a scorching sun. It's just that these swords are so sharp, but they all brushed past Mayan's figure, not even scratching her clothes. Mayan stares blankly. This sword intent, this aura, it's so familiar. Young martial uncle. The swords dissipate, and the young man's figure slowly descends from the sky, guarding in front of Mayan. In a split second, there's a deathly silence. Today, Luo Yinxiao is wearing a snow-white robe, with ice blue embroidered edges. Her long hair, like a waterfall, is casually tied up with a white ribbon. The black silk satin flutters in the wind, lacking the gentle, jade-like, gentlemanly style, but with an even more bewitching and elegant appearance. Clang! The harp in Yishuang's hand isn't steady, and directly smashes to the ground. There's actually such a graceful and peerless man in this world. Yi Yun's eyes turn to Honglan. She sees that this solitary snow and ice in Honglan's hand has disappeared, and her eyes are fixed on Luo Yunxiao, as if she has lost her soul. Solitary snow and ice is linked to Hong Lan's divine soul. Once her mind becomes unstable, she will return to Hong Lan's Qinkuan sleeve. Yi Yin looks at Luo Yunxiao again. She sees that he's actually holding Mu Lu Pavilion's holy stone. If an ordinary person touched the holy stone with their bare hands, their mind would become unstable and they would be in unbearable pain. But Luo Yunxiao seems to be fine, and the holy stone, which would shake violently in other people's hands and emit bursts of black gas, seems to have met its nemesis. In Luo Yunxiao's hand, it's as quiet as a real lifeless stone. Even the black fog that gushes out from the unclean abyss. After the holy stone calms down, it scrambles to return to the barrier. Yi Yin is instantly excited. Young Master Yunxiao can actually control the holy stone like the saintess. No, how can he only control the holy stone? He can even stop the riot of the unclean abyss. Such an outstanding man, who is also the saintess's favorite, if he can marry into Mu Lu Pavilion. Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? Given the holy lady's looks and the status of the cleansing joy pavilion, young Master Yun Xiao must have wished for nothing more than to be able to gain the holy lady's favor. Coincidentally, at this moment, Hong Lan could not help but take a few steps forward and called out softly, "Young Master Yun Xiao." Yi Yin looked at her holy daughter's eyes that were filled with affection, and her snow-white cheeks were slightly red. She felt a surge of excitement in her heart. Blue Billows was simply too beautiful. She knew that no man would be able to refuse. After taking control of the Nightmare Stone, Luo Yunxiao turns to look at Mayan. "How are your injuries?" Mayan revolves her spiritual power, wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth. "It's nothing." Fortunately, Junior Martial Uncle came in time, although she was not afraid of the god Execution Shaman. However, after her spiritual power was exhausted, she could not stop the black mist gushing out of the unclean abyss. If that happened, the villagers of Yuanwu village and the surrounding northern continent cultivators would suffer. Nonsense. Luo Yunxiao suddenly raised her voice. Her usually indifferent and cold face shows a rare, uncontrollable anger. Again and again, "Do you not care about your own safety?" Mayan stares blankly at Luo Yunxiao's angry face, somewhat unable to come back to her senses. This is the first time she has seen her junior martial uncle so angry at her. For a moment, she is somewhat dumbfounded. Chapter 28:10. Luo Yunxiao. "Speak." "Oh, I know I was wrong," Mayan cautiously replied. "Young martial uncle, you don't be angry." Luo Yunxiao's hands tightly clenched and loosened in his sleeves. After repeating this several times, he was able to suppress the anger and fear in his heart. The trembling of his body and the thoughts that he had been carefully concealing did not completely leak out. "Young Master Yunxiao." An ethereal and sweet voice broke the oppressive atmosphere of this demon person. Hong Lan half raised his head, his eyes as clear as water, as if reflecting bits of starlight as he looked at Luo Yunxiao. "Do you still remember me? In the ancient ruins of the Western continent, it was you who saved my life. If you hadn't helped me at that time, I might not have been able to return to Mu Lu Pavilion alive." The interruption of this voice forced Luo Yunxiao to restrain his emotions. Mayan Kuang breathed a sigh of relief, inwardly praising the holy maiden of Mu Lu Pavilion for saving him from the fire and water. Young martial uncle's expression just now was too scary. She felt that in the next moment, a terrible punishment would be spat out from those thin lips. Even if she didn't die, she would still lose a layer of skin. Luo Yunxiao forcibly suppressed the depression in his heart, and when he looked at Hong Lan, he had already recovered his usual indifference. "It's no trouble at all. For you, it's no trouble at all. But for me, it's a kindness that I will remember for a lifetime." Hong Lan bit his lower lip, his gaze falling on a nightmare stone in his hand. "Young Master Yunxiao, I don't know why you need the holy stone. If this holy stone was mine, I would not hesitate to offer it to you if you wanted it. However, the holy stone belongs to Mu Lu Pavilion, and it is very important to us. I am very sorry, but I have to ask you to return my clan's holy stone. Luo Yunxiao stared blankly, looking down at the nightmare stone in his hand. He only hesitated for a moment, then reached out and handed it back to Honglan. Master, I stole this with great difficulty. Wen's clamoring abruptly stopped under Luo Yunxiao's cold gaze. It shrunk its neck and no longer dared to clamor, only muttering a few words unwillingly. Honglan looked down. Under the sunlight, a slender, jade-like hand with well-proportioned joints brought the reddish-brown nightmare stone to her. Honglan's heart was thumping hard and her face was red. She couldn't summon the courage to reach out and take it for a long time. Young Master Yunxiao, it's not impossible if you really want this saint stone. Yi Yun's smiling voice suddenly interrupted. The holy stone is very precious to our cleansing joy pavilion. Even the elders, and I don't have the qualifications to touch it. However, the saintess is different. The saint stones are usually kept by her. In this world, other than the saintess, who else can touch and use the holy stone at will, is the husband of the saintess. Yi Yun raised her head and looked at Luo Yunxiao's handsome face. The more she looked at him, the more satisfied she felt. I wonder if young Master Yunxiao has the intention to marry into my cleansing joy pavilion and become the sacred lady's husband. Honglan's face turned red, and she hurriedly cried out, Yi Yun, don't talk nonsense. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Mayan's mouth gapes wide open, unable to close it for a long time. Just now, he was scared out of his wits by little martial uncle's anger, causing his spiritual sense to go haywire. Only now can he see that the saintess of cleansing joy pavilion likes little martial uncle. Lung Yuma and the others stared blankly for a moment, then suddenly jumped up from the ground. Marry into cleansing joy pavilion. What kind of joke is this? Why should our little martial uncle marry into your cleansing joy pavilion? Chapter 28:11. Yeah, who do you think you are? So what if she's the saintess? Our junior martial uncle is the #1 swordsman in the cultivation world and the most handsome man in the world. If your holy daughter wants to marry into our Xiao Yao school, we'll have to see if she's good enough. Mu Yin nodded repeatedly. She approached Luo Yunxiao and said, Junior martial uncle, you mustn't take things too hard and marry into our family. The tradition of the Xiao Yao sect is to marry into the family. Luo Yunxiao raised her hand and knocked her on the head. What nonsense are you talking about? She said angrily. His tone was unkind, but there was a tenderness in his eyes that could not be dispelled. Others might not be able to tell. However, Yuan Sherlan, who had been watching Luo Yunxiao, saw it clearly. The joy he felt when he found out that Luo Yunxiao is Mayan's little martial uncle, all of a sudden, it completely dissipates. Her heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle, and it was tingling faintly. Luo Yunxiao's hand continued to move forward, without any intention of withdrawing. He didn't want to accept Yi Yun's proposal at all. In other words, he didn't even think about marrying her. Just like when they were in the ruins, he had never taken her seriously. Tears welled up in Yuan Sherlan's eyes. This was the first time she liked a man. I thought the taste of love is sweet, but it turned out to be so bitter and sorrowful. Meilon took a deep breath, forcing back the tears in her eyes, and reached out to take the nightmare stone from Luo Yunxiao's hand. Yi Yun's expression was extremely gloomy. His cheeks were burning as if someone had slapped him hard. She gritted her teeth and said, Young Master Yunxiao, what do you mean? Could it be that you think that the saintess of my cleansing Lu Pavilion is not worthy of you? Luo Yunxiao replied indifferently, I'm grateful for your kindness, but I don't have such intentions. You, Yi Yun enough. Jin Lan shouted hoarsely, gripping the nightmare stone tightly. Let's go. Wait, holy maiden, Chu Guangxuan suddenly said. Even if the holy stone has been returned, these blasphemers have not been dealt with. This is a huge threat to the entire northern continent. Honglan's footsteps paused, and she turned around. The net of light on the villagers of Yuan Wu village disappeared after the music stopped. However, the coldness and ruthlessness of the people of Cleansing Joy, Pavilion, and Banlon had left a deep impression on them. At this time, Seeing that Hong Lan is looking over, these villagers immediately hide behind Mu Yin in panic. Chu Guangquan stepped forward, saying coldly, "The saintess of the blasphemers must be eliminated." Yi Yin had just witnessed her holy maiden being humiliated and rejected, so she was fuming with rage. Hearing this, he immediately took out his pipa and said coldly, "People of the Xiaoyao sect, are you going to continue to protect these blasphemers and cause trouble for the northern continent?" Mu Yin feels that a small hand is fiercely gripping the hem of her clothes. His tiny body pressed against hers, trembling incessantly. "Should we die?" The little girl didn't know what a blasphemer was, but she did know that in the northern continent, it was an existence that everyone wanted to kill. Mu Yin reaches out to stroke her hair, softly saying, "Of course not. There has never been a blasphemer in this world." Mu Xiaoyao's eyes brightened. The little girl's eyes lit up for a moment before dimming again. "But the people in the tribe say that the saintess is supreme and is the messenger of God. We have always believed in the saintess and revered her. My greatest wish is to become a maid in the saintess temple." Chapter 28:12. But now, the holy maiden says that the people in our village are blasphemers and should die. We clearly didn't do anything. Mu Yin looks up at Jin Lan, her eyes heavy. Jin Lan feels as if these eyes can see through her soul, leaving her with nowhere to hide. She panics and suddenly raises her voice. "Do you think that you are very kind, protecting innocent villagers? But have you ever thought that if you let these people live, the Horton tribe and even the entire northern continent will die? You don't know what a real blasphemer is, yet you insist on saving them. In the end, the entire northern continent is in a desperate situation because of these blasphemers, but you just walk away. Zhu Mu Yin, aren't you being hypocritical?" Mu Yin frowns and is about to speak. Suddenly, a clear and deep male voice comes from beside her. "Then do you know where the blasphemers of the northern continent come from? When you accuse others, have you ever thought about the source of the blasphemer's sin?" Jin Lan stares blankly, looking at Luo Yunxiao. What do you mean by this?" Luo Yunxiao raises his hand in the air. The nightmare stone that Jin Lan had put away in her sleeve unexpectedly flies out on its own and into Luo Yunxiao's hand. "Holy stone! Luo Yunxiao, what are you doing? Quickly return the holy stone to us." Luo Yunxiao gently twirls the holy stone with her fingers, revealing a mocking smile. "Do you know where this stone came from?" Jin Lan suppresses the trembling in her voice, raises her head, and says in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "I know, Qi Wen said that this stone fell from the Xiuxian continent. But my Mulu pavilion has owned it for hundreds of years. Everyone in the Horton tribe worships it, offers sacrifices to it, and obtains energy from it. We have already regarded it as our own holy stone. Do you want to take it away just because you say that it came from the Xiuxian continent and doesn't belong to us?" Lung Yuma sneers. "If my young martial uncle wanted to take it away, he wouldn't have returned it to you." Gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Jin Lan's face turns green and white, but she grits her teeth and stubbornly looks at Luo Yunxiao. Luo Yunxiao lightly says, "I didn't want to say these things, but what he didn't say." But Yuan Shilan understood, because she called out Mayan's hypocrisy, because she fiercely humiliated Mayan with her words. She angered this man. Hong Lan gritted her teeth and slightly raised her chin. Her pride did not allow her to cry, nor did it allow her to beg for love. Luo Yunxiao said, "In the Xiuxian continent, there's a huge barrier that covers the entire continent. Every once in a while, cracks will appear on the barrier, and countless monsters that only know how to devour flesh and blood will pour out from the cracks. These monsters are formidable and possess lethal poison within their bodies. Moreover, they can be reborn without limit. If they're allowed to wreak havoc in the world, then the three dimensions would be instantly destroyed. These monsters are called nightmare ghosts." Hong Lan's eyes widened in shock. She suddenly recalled that Qi Wen had mentioned that the sacred stone of their cleansing Lu Pavilion was called the Nightmare Stone. Our Saint Stone, is it related to this poltergeist?" Luo Yunxiao nodded. 1,000 years ago, the Xiaoxian continent experienced a great upheaval, and the barrier was deliberately torn apart by someone. Chapter 28:13. A giant poltergeist ghost came out of the crack. Its strength surpassed all the great powers of the Xiaoxian continent at that time. It massacred countless people and corpses littered the land. It was only after the abbot of Defying Temple risked his life to kill it that it finally found peace. The Nightmare Stone was dropped by the poltergeist ghost after its death. To the people of the Xiaoxian continent was a distant and superior existence. 99% of the people here lived less than 100 years and could never reach the tribulation passing stage. Even if they could reach the tribulation passing stage, they wouldn't be able to attract the lightning tribulation, let alone ascend. In the eyes of the people of the Xiaoxian continent, the people of the Xiaoxian continent were superior immortals. They were rulers who could crush ants like them with a single finger. However, such an unreachable immortal realm had actually suffered a calamity before. How powerful was the poltergeist ghost that could almost destroy the entire Xiaoxian continent? Hearing this, Yuan Lan was shocked. She couldn't help but look at Luo Yunxiao's handsome face. Why was he so familiar with the Xiaoxian continent? Compared to Yuan Lan's shock, Yi Yun and Chu Guangquan were excited. Their eyes fell on the Nightmare Stone in Luo Yunxiao's hand, greed and desire in their eyes. The Nightmare Stone left behind by the poltergeist ghost that even the great powers of the Xiaoxian continent couldn't resist. What kind of rare treasure was that? Their Mulu pavilion was indeed blessed by the heavens to be able to obtain a treasure like the Nightmare Stone. Yi Yun said, "Young Master Yunxiao, what do you mean by this? Even if the poltergeist ghost was violent when it was alive, it's dead now. Isn't it natural for the Nightmare Stone it left behind to be used by others?" "That's right," Chu Guangquan sneered. "Young Master Yunxiao, please don't quibble anymore. Aren't the inner cores of those man-eating beasts still able to save lives and increase cultivation? Why can't we use the Nightmare Stone? If you really covet the Nightmare Stone and want to steal it, just say it. Why do you have to pretend?" The people of the Xiaoyao sect were furious at being slandered like this. Even Mu Yan's expression darkened. Only Luo Yunxiao's expression remained calm from beginning to end. 1,000 years ago, when the poltergeist ghost had just been exterminated, someone in the Xiaoxian continent had already discovered the usefulness of the Nightmare Stone. Mortals, cultivators, immortal cultivators, devil cultivators, and even god cultivators can use Nightmare Stones to increase their strength in a short period of time. Moreover, unlike medicinal pills, the Nightmare Stone's effect on a person's strength is vast and limitless. As long as we pay a sufficient price, we can even create an invincible army. The more Chu Guangquan and Yi Yun listened, the more excited they became. The invincible army. Wasn't this the goal of the Cleansing Joy Pavilion? What they wanted was not just to live in a corner of the northern continent, but to accumulate enough power to take over the entire cultivation continent. At that time, all the resources in the world would belong to them. How far would it be to transcend the tribulation and ascend? Luo Yunxiao seemed to have seen through their thoughts as a trace of ridicule flashed across her eyes. If the Nightmare Stone was truly perfect and heaven-defying, why would the people of the Xiaoxian continent allow it to wander to the Xiaoxian continent? When the usefulness of the Nightmare Stone was discovered, a high monk from the Defying Temple prophesied that it would be inauspicious and urged everyone not to use it. However, in the face of benefits and power, how many people would listen to such advice? Chapter 28:14. The Nightmare Stone passed through many hands and was finally picked up by a lucky second-rate family head. He hid the Nightmare Stone in a secret place that was blocked by a barrier and used the Nightmare Stone to continuously produce powerful immortals. In a short 10 years, this second-rate family's power grew to the point where it could contend against the three major powers of the Xiaoxian continent: the Polar Domain, the Nether Domain, and the Demon Race. Hong Lan couldn't help but ask, "What happened to this family? What happened?" Luo Yunxiao smirked. The family head was dreaming of dominating the Xioshin continent and even started to invade the polar domain when a nightmare stone suddenly backfired. Everyone in this family became mindless, spiritless, soulless, and filled with killing intent. They became monsters that thirsted to devour flesh and blood. In other words, they all became starved ghosts. Honglan's pupils constricted, and she unconsciously took a step back. No, impossible. You're talking nonsense. Chu Guangxuan was stunned at first. Then he flew into a rage. Luo Yunxiao, don't try to mislead people. My cleansing joy pavilion has obtained the holy stone for hundreds of years, and no one has ever become a starved ghost. Luo Yunxiao sneered. That's why I just asked, what do you think blasphemers are? Mindless, spiritless, and in the end, even their souls would dissipate and they would become monsters that only knew how to devour flesh and blood. Once bitten by such a monster, they would be infected and become a new monster. Honglan's face turned pale and her body swayed. It was as if a belief that she had guarded for a lifetime had completely collapsed at this moment. So you're saying that there are no blasphemers at all? When Huanglang looked at Luo Yunxiao in a daze, the so-called blasphemers from the beginning to the end are just sacrifices to increase their own power. How can this be? In Yuanwu village, an old man with red eyes shouted. Then what about my son who was sent to the unclean abyss after participating in the worship ceremony? I thought it was because he committed a sin in his previous life that he was rejected by the gods in this life. But now you're telling me that all of this is just a scam? You, give me back my son. Give me back my son. The old man charged at Chu Guangxuan as if he had gone mad, his skinny and powerless hand desperately trying to grab Chu Guangxuan's neck. However, Chu Guangxuan waved him lightly, and he fell to the ground. Grandpa, Xiao Ai rushed over to help the old man up and burst into tears. Father, return my father to me. You are all scoundrels. Mulu Pavilion is full of scoundrels. I don't want to worship the saintess anymore. Woo woo woo. Some people in the crowd could not help but cry out loud. And my husband also became a blasphemer during the sacrifice. My poor daughter, do you hear? You're not a blasphemer at all. I'm useless. I couldn't protect you back then. Boo-hoo. The entire place was filled with crying sounds, causing the faces of the people of cleansing Lu Pavilion to turn extremely ugly. Chu Guangxuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He raised his hand and signaled to the people below. However, before they could make a move, Mayan swings the seven absolute sword in the air, drawing a beautiful arc, and coldly says, What? You realize that you can't hide your scandal anymore, so you want to silence me? Chu Guangxuan said angrily, Don't talk nonsense. What is the meaning of your Xiao Yao school? You came to my northern continent to mislead people with your fallacious words and ruin the reputation of my Mulu Pavilion. Do you really think that there's no one on my northern continent? Chapter 28:15. Yishuang said, What proof do you have that our saint stones are nightmare stones? My cleansing Lu Pavilion has been offering sacrifices to the holy stone for 100 years, and we are still living in harmony. The family that you mentioned was defeated in 10 years. How can the two be compared? Lung Yumo rolled her eyes. Idiot, didn't you hear what my junior master said just now? Nightmare stones had to pay a certain price before they could display their corresponding abilities. You're just cultivators, but that family is made up of immortals. Can the price paid by both sides be the same? Ling Yuxing nodded and said, Not suffering a backlash in the past 100 years doesn't mean there won't be a backlash. It's just that the nightmare stone hasn't gathered enough energy. Isn't the best proof that the symptoms of the blasphemers you speak of exactly the same as the poltergeist ghosts? Chu Guangxuan waved his sleeve and said loudly, I won't argue with you. Young Master Yin Xiao, if you still have a little bit of shame, quickly return our Mu Lu Pavilion's holy stone. Also, these blasphemers are members of the Horton tribe. It is our freedom to deal with them as we see fit. Could it be that you, the unfettered seven, are already so overbearing to the point of interfering with the matters of others' clans? Mu Yin looks at his uncontrollable anger and slightly narrows her eyes. Don't tell me you already knew about the side effects of the Nightmare Stone and the blasphemers? Chu Guangquan was stunned, and a wisp of astonishment and terror flashed swiftly in his eyes. But it's quickly covered up by flustered and exasperated anger. Jun Mayan, I'm warning you, if you dare to spout venomous slander again, don't blame my Mulu Pavilion. It seems that you really know. Mu Yin sneered. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and slowly shook his head. No, not just that. The so-called blasphemers and the so-called unclean abyss were all created by your cleansing joy pavilion. This was to provide enough energy for the Nightmare Stone. This is the price you have to pay for using the Nightmare Stone. Am I right? You're courting death. Chu Guangquan abruptly took out the Lusheng and placed it next to his mouth. His spirit energy surged. Ear-piercing music resounds, and in a split second, it turns into hundreds of sound blades that fly towards Mayan. Mayan sneers. You want to silence me just because you've been right? That depends on whether you have the ability or not. Before her voice falls, the Tian Mo Chin is already floating in front of her. His slender fingers plucked the strings lightly. Sound blade activated. If Chu Guangquan's sound blade attack was like 100 arrows being shot at the same time, Mu Yan's zither sound blade was a rain of swords, an inescapable net. Chu Guangquan didn't even have time to react before his sound blades were completely shattered in the air. His body felt as if it was being sliced by 1,000 blades. In an instant, blood spurted out. It made him howl like a pig being slaughtered. Lung Yuma laughed mischievously. You're very bold to compete with my junior sister in musical attack. Ling Yusheng, he died a horrible death too. The arrogant Chu Guangquan fell to the ground with a thud and lay in a pool of blood, unable to get up for a long time. Elder Chu, the people of Mu Lu Pavilion rushed over to help Chu Guangquan up. He glares at Mayan. Jun Mayan, you actually dared to make a move. Mu Yin brushes off the dust on her clothes. If I don't make a move, am I supposed to let him hit me? I'm sorry, but the Xiaoyao sect doesn't have the habit of taking a beating without fighting back. We only believe that if people don't offend us, we won't offend them. Mulan takes out the solitary ice and snow, playing the ethereal sound of the zither. Countless rays of light fall on Chu Guangquan's body. Chapter 28:16. The wounds on Chu Guangquan's body stop bleeding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although it's not completely healed, this method of using medicine to make music is very good. Mu Yin couldn't help but show an expression of appreciation. On her way from the Yinwu continent to the Xiuzhen continent, she had encountered very few musicians. Occasionally, she would meet one, but they were like Yi Shaoqin, the assistant people player in the 3-courtyard tournament, people who were eager for quick success. They only used musical instruments and performance as a means to achieve fame and power. In their hearts, they don't have the slightest bit of love for music or the instrument in their hands. And this kind of character would be directly reflected in the music that was performed. Up until now, only the billowing music of the ocean contained such sincere emotions. She really loves the harp and treasures the lonely solitude of snow in her hands. That's why she can perfectly integrate her emotions, spiritual power, and music and truly reach the level of a musician. It's a pity that such a noble musician was born in a filthy place like Mu Lu Pavilion. Ever since she was young, she had been brainwashed to discard her humanity and prioritize the interests of Mu Lu Pavilion. If this goes on, she doesn't know how long the clarity of her music can last. Under Yuan Lan's treatment, Chu Guangquan slowly opens his eyes. Yi Yun and the others call out in delight. Elder Chu, how are you? Who would have thought that Chu Guangquan would suddenly push them aside, his red eyes staring at Mu Yin, then looking at the Tian Mo Chin in her hands. You, what kind of musician skill did you just use? What's that Chin in your hands? Lung Yuma impatiently says, what kind of skill in zither is none of your business? No. How could it have nothing to do with me? Chu Guangquan staggers up from the ground. That's the lost unique skill of my Mu Lu Pavilion. Why can you use it? Where on earth did you learn these musician skills? And this chain, I now have reason to suspect that this chain is the other lost artifact of my Mu-Lu Pavilion, the Cry of the Nine Heavens Crane. Yes, yes, and the moves you use to resist the black fog of the unclean abyss. I thought they were familiar at the time, but I didn't think that they were the lost skills of my Mu-Lu Pavilion for hundreds of years. Yi Yun and the others stare blankly at first, then widen their eyes in disbelief. Elder Chu, is what you said true? Is that zither really the lost divine artifact of our Cleansing Joy Pavilion, the Cry of the Nine Heavens? I've also heard that our Cleansing Joy Pavilion used to have a powerful musician inheritance. Our strength was 100 or even 1,000 times stronger than it is now. Could it be that there really is a lost supreme art? But this is clearly my Mu-Lu Pavilion's unique skill. How did it fall into the hands of this Junmayan? Saintess. Yi Yin grabbed Honglan's hand and said excitedly, "That's great." Cry of the Nine Heavens Crane had been lost for more than 10 years. It was the greatest regret of the previous generation's Saintess when she died. Over the years, as long as a powerful zither appears, you will send someone to the Saint Lady Temple for inspection, just to confirm whether it is the Cry of the Ninth Heaven Crane. Now that we have found the real Cry of the Ninth Heaven Crane, you can also comfort the spirit of the former Saintess in heaven. At first, there was some doubt on Yuan Sherlan's face. When he heard Yi Yun's words, his heart shook, and his eyes couldn't help but ripple. The Cleansing Joy Pavilion's divine artifact was supposed to have two. One was the harp, solitary ice and snow, in the hands of Sea Dragon. Chapter 28:17. The other one was an inconspicuous zither called the Cry of the Ninth Heaven Crane. Before Bai Lan matured, no one in Cleansing Joy Pavilion could control the solitary serenity of ice and snow. That was why solitary ice and snow had always been shelved. The other one was an inconspicuous zither called the Cry of the Ninth Heaven Crane. Before Bai Lan matured, no one in Cleansing Joy Pavilion could control the solitary serenity of ice and snow. That was why solitary ice and snow had always been shelved, and the Holy Maiden had always used the Cry of the Ninth Heaven. The previous generation's Saintess, who was also Bai Lan's mother, Bai Wei, was no exception. More than 10 years ago, a group of mysterious people appeared in Cleansing Joy Pavilion. They asked Cleansing Joy Pavilion to help them hunt down a few fugitives. At that time, Ban Lan was still young and didn't know the identity of those mysterious people. She only knew that they were very powerful. They were so powerful that the former Holy Maiden, who was already at the peak of the tribulation passing stage, and who was also Bai Lan's mother, couldn't resist them at all. After being intimidated, Ma Shiwei had no choice but to bring along her Cry of the Ninth Heaven Crane and lead a large group of Mu-Lu Pavilion's elites to search for it. Who knew that, in the end, this group of elites would be completely annihilated, and not even their bones were left behind. Only Shiwei and Great Elder Xinyuan dragged their heavily injured bodies back, but Cleansing Lu Pavilion's divine weapon, Cry of the Nine Heavens Crane, was lost by her. Not long after returning to Cleansing Joy Pavilion, Ma Yinwei passed away due to her heavy injuries. Before she died, she was filled with guilt. She felt that she was the one who caused the deaths of the elites of the Mu-Lu Pavilion. She was also the one who lost the Cry of the Ninth Heaven Crane, causing the Mu-Lu Pavilion to lose the divine artifact. During those years, the status of the Saintess Temple of Cleansing Lu Pavilion was in jeopardy. It wasn't until Honglan matured and was able to play the solitary snow and ice that the situation was completely reversed. But in Honglan's heart, the Crane's Cry of the Ninth Heaven had always been on her mind, because that was her mother's final wish before she died. Honglan walked towards Mu Yin and said in a low voice, "Miss June, can you let me take your zither back to examine it for a few days? I guarantee that as long as this zither is not my Mu-Lu Pavilion's divine weapon, it will be returned to you in 3 days." "Are you sick?" Lung Yuma said snappily. "This zither is my junior sister's contracted weapon. If it is casually given to you, If it is slightly damaged, her own divine soul will suffer a backlash. If it were you, would you be willing to hand it over for other people to study? Ling Yuxing also said coldly, I want you to let us study your zither for 3 days. Are you willing? Are you kidding me? Before Ban Jinlan could reply, Chu Guangquan and Yun had already objected vehemently. The solitary ice and snow is our cleansing joy pavilion's most precious treasure. Apart from the saintess, it cannot be in the hands of anyone else. Hong Lan also frowned. The contract between her and the solitary star of ice and snow was no ordinary soul imprint. If she handed over icy snow solitary, and someone purposely tried to erase her imprint, she would suffer a strong backlash. Miss June, solitary ice and snow is too important to me. I can't hand it over to you. But apart from the solitary serenity of ice and snow, I can accept anything you want as a guarantee. Furthermore, I guarantee in the name of the Saintess of Mulu Pavilion that as long as you don't steal the divine artifact of Mulu Pavilion, this zither will be returned to you. How can returning the zither be enough? Chu Guangquan said anxiously. There's also the lost ultimate art of my cleansing Lu Pavilion and our sacred stone. Saintess, these are very important to our cleansing joy pavilion. You mustn't let them take them away. Chapter 28:18. Mu Yin looks at Yuan Sherlan with a smile that isn't a smile. Do you think the conditions you proposed are very fair? Hu Jinlan's face immediately turned red. He subconsciously glanced at Luo Yunxiao. Of course, she knew that the deal she proposed was too biased. He wasn't willing to hand over the solitary serenity of the ice and snow, but he insisted that Mayan hand over her personal instrument. But Cry the Ninth Heaven Crane was too important to her. The cleansing Lu Pavilion was a responsibility that she could not abandon. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Regardless of whether my conditions are fair or not, this is your only chance to prove your innocence. Or does the Xiao Yao school really want to be enemies with the Cleansing Joy Pavilion? Chu Guangquan sneered. Don't be so shameless. Since you've entered my northern continent, you'd better listen to me if you want to live. Even though Chu Guangquan had just been beaten by Mayan until he was looking for his teeth all over the floor. However, he was still incomparably arrogant and showed no signs of fear. This was because they were in the northern continent, within the boundaries of the Cleansing Joy Pavilion. This arrogant and despotic attitude completely angered Lung Yuma and the others. Damn it, don't be so shameless. This is what I want to say. You want to steal my junior sister's things? Fine. Let's see if the Carefree sect is afraid of you or not. In an instant, spiritual energy surged, and the atmosphere was tense. They were just 5 nascent soul cultivators. However, the immense pressure that was instantly released caused the expressions of everyone in Cleansing Delight Pavilion, including Elder Chu and the 5 saintesses, to change. They had always thought that Jun Mayan was the only strong one among the Xiao Yao 7. Jun Mayan was the only one who could beat Elder Chu, who was in the leaving body stage, with her nascent soul cultivation. But at this moment, he discovered that other than Jun Mayan, the other 4 were also so strong that it made his scalp go numb. Judging from the pressure of their auras, it seemed that each of the 4 of them could beat up Chu Guangquan. Chu Guangquan's face alternated between green and white as he hurriedly looked at Bailan. Saintess, why don't you make a move? He shouted. Everything is for Mu Lu Pavilion. There was a hint of struggle and shame in Hong Lan's eyes. Her gaze sweeps over to Luo Yunxiao, who hasn't spoken all this time, and she finally clenches her teeth. Jun Mayan, I'll give you one last chance. Don't force me to activate the myriad torrent formation. As she spoke, she had already activated her ice snow solitude. His fingers plucked the strings of a zither, and the melody was ethereal and pleasant to listen to. As the zither was played, countless rays of light shot out from the zither and spread in all directions. It was as if he was trying to pull something between heaven and earth. Mayan sneers. The Tian Mo Chin spins a few circles in the air and steadily falls in front of her. Did he really think that she was afraid of this stupid array? However, before she could speak, she heard a gentle and magnetic man's voice ring out. There's no need to give me another chance. Luo Yinxiao looked at Hong Lan, then slowly turned to the people of the Mu Lu Pavilion and said, Now, it's not the Mu Lu Pavilion that wants to cause trouble for the Xiao Yao sect. It's the Xiao Yao sect that doesn't want to let this go. What? Hong Lan was shocked and pained. However, Luo Yunxiao did not even look at her as she raised her hand and threw out an array disc. The formation plate hovered in the air and began to spin rapidly. In a split second, strands of silver energy flew out from the formation plate and shot out in all directions. In the next moment, Hong Lan's eyes widened in shock, and she could no longer continue playing the guqin. How could this be? Saintess? What are you doing? Quickly activate the array. Chapter 28:19. Hong Lan looks at Luo Yunxiao in disbelief. What did you do? Why was her connection with the wand to Great Array cut off? Yi Yun and the others also realize something and become nervous. The wand to Great Array is another treasure of our Mu Lu Pavilion. What did you do, Yinxiao Gongzi? Don't tell me you want to take our formation for yourself? How can everyone in the Xiao Yao school be so shameless? Jun Mine stole our zither and learned our secret arts. Yinxiao Gongzi, you robbed our holy stone, and now you still want it? Slap. A heavy slap lands on Yishuang's face. She falls to the ground and can't get up for a long time. Then slap, slap, slap. The continuous applause caused everyone in Cleansing Joy Pavilion to fall to the ground, except for Yuan Shirlan. Yiyun, Yishuang, Yifeng, Yishui, Yiyu, and Dongling are fine. Being slapped in the air, their cheeks are swollen and they don't suffer any real injury. But Chu Guangxuan and his subordinates, who scolded them the most viciously, have their bones broken. Some scream like pigs being slaughtered, and some marry each other. Hong Lan stares at Luo Yunxiao in disbelief. What were you doing? She doesn't even think about it. Luo Yunxiao, who has always been gentle and elegant, is actually so ruthless. Luo Yunxiao says lightly, Didn't you accuse our Xiao Yao school of robbing your things? Since we've been accused, if we don't prove it, won't we suffer a loss? Buffed. Mayan and the others can't help but laugh. I didn't know that Junior Master is so two-faced. Ahem, isn't it the good tradition of our Xiao Yao school to return a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye? Luo Yunxiao has always been indifferent. On the surface, he is gentle and elegant, but in fact, he has an indescribable sense of alienation from everything in the world. But these few times, in order to protect them, he attacks again and again, showing his anger and emotions. This makes the people of the Xiao Yao school feel that their junior master, who is like an immortal from the ninth heaven, seems to be a lot closer to them. The atmosphere in the Xiao Yao school is cheerful. The people of Cleansing Joy Pavilion were ashamed and furious at the same time. With tears in her eyes, Dongling fiercely glared at Luo Yunxiao and roared hysterically. The Saintess has fallen in love with you. For you, she even tolerated your spirit beast and the people of the Xiao Yao sect. How can you be so heartless and let her down? Luo Yunxiao subconsciously glances at Mayan, seeing her gaze sweep back and forth between Yuan Shirlan and him. He couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart, but he quickly covered it up. His appearance was elegant beyond compare, but his expression was as indifferent as smoke. I've never fallen in love, so how can I be heartless? These short words were like a sharp blade that ruthlessly pierced through Military Orchid's heart. Her face was pale from the pain, and she was on the verge of collapsing. The thing that she was most unable to accept was that Luo Yunxiao didn't even look down on her, nor did she feel disgusted or detest. She purely didn't take her seriously in the slightest. Luo Yunxiao, you're too much. Yi Yun screamed. Her fingers fiercely plucked on the pipa. We just want to take back Cleansing Joy Pavilion's things. Is that wrong? Luo Yunxiao sneered. A frog at the bottom of a well, short-sighted. Do you really think that everyone in the world covets your Cleansing Joy Pavilion's things? As he spoke, he threw the holy stone in front of Military Orchid. Chapter 2820. I've already explained the origin and backlash of a nightmare stone. If you say that it belongs to your cleansing joy pavilion, then so be it. I hope you won't regret it when the entire Horton tribe suffers a backlash in the future. Are you cursing us? Enough. Honglan's face was pale. She picked up the nightmare stone and shouted, "Let's go." Saintus? How can we just leave like this? Cry of a nine heavens crane and our cleansing Lu Pavilion's ultimate technique. Yuan Sherlon raised his voice and roared. I said go. Do you want to disobey my orders? Or do you think you haven't embarrassed yourselves enough today? As she spoke, she tightly gripped the nightmare stone in her hand. Without sparing Luo Yunxiao another glance, he soared into the sky. The wind whistled past her cheeks, and a tear fell from the corner of her eye, dissipating in the air. Yi Yin took out a flying boat and carried the injured people of cleansing Lu Pavilion onto it. Before leaving, she fiercely glares at Mu Yin and Luo Yunxiao before turning to leave. Seeing that they had flown away, Lung Yuma frowned and said, Junior Martial Uncle, you're letting them go just like that? It didn't conform to the Xiao Yao sect's principle of, if people don't offend us, we won't offend them. If people offend us, we'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Luo Yunxiao remained silent. On the contrary, Mu Yin slowly says, Mulu Pavilion has indeed created many innocent blasphemers, but it has also cured many patients over the years. Furthermore, there's one more thing that Mayan didn't say. The entire Horton tribe, and even the entire northern continent, had to offer sacrifices to the Nightmare Stone every year to receive its power. Those ordinary cultivators who had only strengthened their physical bodies were fine. However, it was different for those gods givers who had improved their cultivation and were given special abilities. They had to participate in the sacrificial ceremony every year to receive the power bestowed by the Nightmare Stone. Once it stopped, these people's bodily functions would begin to deteriorate and their spiritual power would dry up. In the end, his symptoms were not much different from those of a blasphemer. It was like an addiction that could not be broken. Consuming too much would turn one into a monster. Consuming too little would also turn one into a monster. From the moment they started using the pyrolite stones, they had already entered a vicious circle. Moreover, with the passage of time, generation after generation, all gods' bestowers and even ordinary cultivators would become more and more reliant on the nightmare stones until they were beyond redemption. Mayan looks at Junior Martial Uncle. Chiwen said that you need that nightmare stone. Is it okay to give it to Mu Lu Pavilion like this? Luo Yinxiao turned to look at her and moved his lips. Just when Mu Yin thinks that he is going to answer, she suddenly hears him say coldly, Jun Mayan, how many times have you let yourself fall into danger? The corner of Mayan's mouth twitches. Cough. Junior Martial Uncle, are you still angry? She really wanted to explain that the god-punishing shaman could not hurt her. However, little Martial Uncle's expression was too terrifying. She couldn't explain it at all. Ayaya, how could Master bear to be angry with you, Mei Yin Yin? Even if the Master was really angry, as long as you pounced on him and gave him a kiss, the Master would already be howling. Master, spare me. Chiwen won't dare to speak nonsense anymore. Luo Yunxiao stared coldly at Chiwen, who was in her hand. Her expression was cold and stern, and she no longer had her usual indulgence. Who told you to act on your own and steal something from Mu Lu Pavilion? Chiwen said in an aggrieved tone, but that wasn't an ordinary thing. It was the nightmare stone that Master wanted. Boo-hoo, Master, I know I was wrong. In the future, I won't dare to act on my own. Please don't, Chiwen, okay? Chapter 2821. Mei Yin Yin, help me put in a few good words. Chiwen will become a wild child without a master. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. What fucking wild child? Chiwen, do you know that you're a few hundred years old magical beast? And you're a fucking womanizer. Luo Yunxiao's face darkens. After leaving the northern continent, go back to the Xingyuan dock by yourself. Master. The joking expression on Shi Yuan's face disappeared at this moment and was replaced by panic. Master, are you joking? I really know that I was wrong. I shouldn't have gone to steal the insect stone without telling you. I shouldn't have implicated Mei Yin Yin and the others. In the future, I really won't dare to do it again. Master, you can punish me however you want, just don't drive me away. When I came out of the Xingyuan dock, I swore that I would follow you forever. Mu Yan, quickly help me persuade Master, okay? Chi-Wen clings to Mu Yan's clothes, not even calling her Mei Yin Yin that she usually likes to talk about. Her eyes are filled with uncontrollable anxiety, panic, and pleading. Mu Yan also feels that Chi-Wen is too bold. If she lets it continue to cause trouble, sooner or later, it will bring disaster to little martial uncle. But wouldn't it be too harsh to drive Chi-Wen away directly? She moves her lips, but in the end, she doesn't say anything. Little martial uncle has always been a person who is cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. He will never act impulsively because of impulsiveness. There must be a reason for letting Chi-Wen leave. You help me persuade Master, okay? I don't want to go. I don't want to leave, Master. Seeing that Mu Yan doesn't reply, Chi-Wen tugs at Lung Yuma and Ling Yuxing's clothes. Her voice becomes more and more shrill and anxious, even carrying a hint of sobbing. Ling Yuxing can't bear it. Little martial uncle, Chi-Wen knows he was wrong. Can you give him another chance? Lung Yuma also says, yes, if you're angry, just punish him severely. He has been following you. If you drive him away, you might not be used to it. Chi-Wen looks up at Luo Yunxiao, only hoping that he can take back his order. Lung Yuma nudges Mu Yan with her elbow. If one were to talk about pleading for leniency, then junior sister would definitely be the most useful. Mu Yan is silent for a moment, then coughs lightly. Chi cannot escape punishment, but the death penalty can still be spared. Moreover, I still need its help with something. Young martial uncle, why don't you make an exception and let it redeem itself for a period of time? Luo Yunxiao snapped. What can I help you with? In order to plead for it, you spared no effort. Mayan smiles brightly. If Chi-Wen can really help me, would junior martial uncle be willing to spare his dog life? Luo Yunxiao saw that she rarely showed such a crafty look in front of her, and her brows couldn't help but soften a bit. But he said, I'm just asking it to return to Xingyuan dock. Why do I want its life? Wow. Master, if Chi-Wen leaves you, doesn't that mean you want to kill Chi-Wen? Chi-Wen hugs Mayan and cries. Mei Yin, I knew you were the best. Tell me, do you want me to be a cow or a horse for you? As long as Master doesn't drive me away, I'm willing to do anything. Mu Yan sees Luo Yunxiao crossing his arms over his chest, looking like he wants to see how Chi-Wen will help him. She can't help but smile. Does junior martial uncle really think that I'm giving him a perfunctory reason? She beckons to Wen Huanglang and the villagers of Yuanwu village. Chapter 28-22. Hundreds of people immediately lined up neatly and eagerly ran over. Madam Enchantress, what can I do for you? Madam Enchantress, if there's anything you need us to do, just tell us. In times of crisis, these people habitually called Mayan Madam Immortal. Now that they've come back to their senses, they remembered that Chi-Wen disliked Madam Immortal, so they changed it to Madam Enchantress. Mayan said, I promise to completely expel the god-killing shaman from your body. It might be very painful during this period. Are you willing to accept it? Willing. Madam Enchantress is willing to save us. What's a bit of suffering? That's right, let alone suffering. Even if you ask me to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a pot of boiling oil, I won't even frown. Maya nodded and grabbed something from the Tian Emochin space. In a split second, a huge shadow shrouded the villagers of Yuanwu village. Huh? What's this? Stupid, can't you see it? It's a tree. I know it's a tree, but what kind of tree is it? The villagers of Yuanwu village kept circling around the tree that Mayan had just taken out. Even the people of the Xiaoyao school were curious and gathered around. Only Luo Yunxiao, who was standing on the periphery, had her pupils shrink after seeing the tree. Chu Moli, who had always been gentle and quiet, spoke up at this time. Is this tree related to the treatment of the god-killing shaman? Mayan shook her head, then nodded. In fact, I was looking for this tree in order to treat eldest brother's illness. Huh? Eldest brother's illness is related to this tree? What kind of tree is this? Mayan's eyes were focused on the tall and lush tree, and she slowly said, when eldest brother was unconscious that day, I couldn't tell what kind of illness he had. I only knew that in his heart vein, there was a kind of energy that seemed like poison but wasn't, like evil but wasn't. So, I could only conclude that eldest brother was poisoned. Eldest brother's illness only broke out when he entered the snow demon forest, so there must be something in the forest that caused him to be poisoned. In the end, I found this tree. Ordinary people might not be able to find the difference between this tree and ordinary spirit plants. However, she, who had used all plants' resonating resonance, could clearly feel that the energy contained in the tree and the poison in eldest senior brother's body complemented each other. At the time, I didn't know what this poison was. But now, everything is clear. That was the god-slaying shaman. At the same time, it was also the poison that was slowly deposited in the cultivator's body after being used by the Nightmare Stone. And to completely expel the god-slaying, which from the bodies of the villagers of Yuanwu village, relying on the skills of a Shun musician, is not enough. It was necessary to use the mutually reinforcing and restraining things contained in the tree as a guide to fully exert the effect of the art of magic yellow. This is also the reason why Mayan confidently told the people of Mulu Pavilion that she can cure the villagers of Yuanwu village. She was just a little confused. Whether it was the god punishing witch or the poison of the Nightmare Stone, they would not accumulate in a cultivator's body in a short period of time. It was just like how Lung Yuma and the others had stayed in the unclean abyss for 2 days and did not need to purposely get rid of the poison. But eldest senior brother had clearly just entered the northern continent. How could there be so much god-killing witch poison in his body? So strong? Even more so than the villagers of Yuanwu village who had lived in the Horton tribe all their lives. Mayan composed herself and threw her doubts to the back of her mind. The sound of the zither slowly rang out, and countless rays of light enveloped the tree. Chapter 28-23. After an hour, the originally green leaves and brown branches began to be plated with a layer of silver brilliance. Then, the whole tree began to tremble violently. Leaves flew towards the villagers of Yuanwu village. Eat these leaves. At Mu Yan's command, the villagers didn't hesitate and directly put the leaves into their mouths. The moment the leaves entered their stomachs, a scorching stream of air sprang up from their stomachs and instantly flowed through their whole body. So hot, so painful. The skin of the villagers suddenly turned red, as if they were on fire. Bean-sized beads of sweat came out from their foreheads. Along with the beads of sweat, there were also wisps of black energy lines. However, these energy strands seemed to be reluctant to leave their bodies. From time to time, they would drill in and out of their skin, unwilling to leave. Mu Yan's hand kept playing and said loudly, "Chiwen, didn't you want to atone for your crimes? Now is your chance." Mu Yan said, "Go and swallow all the devil energy overflowing from their bodies." "What?" Chiwen blinked. "Swallow? Swallow the devil energy? It's a magical beast. It's not impossible." Devil energy was also a great tonic for it. But the problem was that the devil energy coming out from other people's bodies. It was just like other people's feces, very smelly and disgusting, okay? Now, not only did it have to eat other people's feces, but it also had to eat hundreds of people's feces. How could Chiwen bear this? "You don't accept?" Mu Yan hooked up her lips and looked at Luo Yin-Xiao. "Young martial uncle, I take back my plea. You take this guy. I'll eat, okay?" Chiwen was scared out of her wits. Without hesitation, she rushed over and inhaled the devil energy coming out from Wen Huanglong's body. Sure enough, the devil energy that was going in and out of Wen Huanglong's body, refusing to leave, was completely swallowed by Qi when in a split second. An hour later, burp, ugh, Chiwen pressed her abdomen with her claws, lying on the ground like a pile of mud, unable to get up for a long time. I can't eat anymore. I don't want to swallow devil energy in this life. Boo-hoo, it's too scary." Mu Yin looks at its mud-like appearance and can't help but burst out laughing. Little martial uncle, I believe that from today onwards, Chi-Wen will definitely not dare to make any more mistakes. Chi-Wen nodded with tears in her eyes. Regardless of whether it was his master or Mei Yin, they were both too terrifying. It didn't want to experience this kind of punishment a second time. Mu Yin looked at Luo Yunxiao and said with a smile, "So, young martial uncle, seeing that it's already in such a miserable state, please spare it this time." Luo Yunxiao was silent for a moment before nodding. "All right, but I have one condition." "What condition?" Luo Yunxiao points to the tree that Mu Yin has just taken out of the Tian and Mochin space and says in a deep voice, "I want the trunk of this tree." Mayan blinks. "Just this?" Luo Yunxiao nodded. She was speechless and wanted to roll her eyes. "Youngest martial uncle, I only took this tree to treat eldest martial brother's illness. Actually, a few branches were enough. You can have them all if you want." At that time, she moved the whole tree here purely because she found it troublesome. Moreover, there was no way to estimate how serious eldest martial brother's poisoning condition was. Luo Yunxiao looked at her deeply. "Do you know the origin of this tree?" 1,000 years ago. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Mayan waved her hand and put the tree into her Qingquan bag, stuffing it into Luo Yunxiao's hand. Chapter 28-24. Mu Yin only left a huge branch for herself. From her experience in treating the villagers of Yuanwu village, this big branch is enough to cure the entire Horton tribe. Luo Yunxiao holds the Qingquan bag in a daze. "Don't you want to know the origin of this tree?" Hee. Little junior sister is afraid that the value of this tree is too high, and you can't bear to part with it. "It's better not to know. There's no other way." Who told little junior sister to always be so poor? She can't wait to convert all the treasures on her into Jingshi. Mu Yin righteously says, "Am I that kind of person who likes Jingshi? Little martial uncle is one of us. The things we give to little martial uncle value." Luo Yunxiao takes out a Qingquan bag and empties it. Clatter, countless dazzling obsidian crystals roll down, piling up into a small hill. This time, the hill is more than 3 times bigger than the one Luo Yunxiao gave them last time. Mu Yan's eyes stare straight. Her impassioned words of pretense of generosity can no longer go on. Lung Yuma directly pounces on it. "Damn it! Obsidian crystals. These are all obsidian crystals. I've never seen them in my entire life." Luo Yunxiao looks at their appearance when they see the Jingshi, a faint smile appearing in her eyes. Her cold and indifferent eyes seem to be stained with a trace of warmth. After packing up everything, Mu Yin and the others prepare to set off to find Yun Ruhan and Luo Yu. According to Wen Huanglang, the old woman who can use the red compass should be a member of the Yun family. The Yun family is also a great family in the northern continent of Ziyunjie and does not belong to Mu Lu Pavilion. However, their relationship with Mu Lu Pavilion has always been close, and they have many marriages. Therefore, although the old woman is a member of the Yun family, she could command the guards of Mu Lu Pavilion at that time. "Little martial uncle, you want to travel with us?" Seeing Luo Yunxiao nod, Mu Yin and the others are both surprised and happy. They have long been accustomed to little martial uncle appearing and disappearing like a ghost, coming and going without stopping. They thought that this time he would be like before, solving their crisis and then leaving. They didn't expect that this time little martial uncle would act together with them. Little martial uncle is worried that we offended Mu Lu Pavilion and will suffer retaliation, right? Maybe little martial uncle is also worried about Xiao Qi and eldest senior brother. Luo Yunxiao allowed them to laugh and tease her, but she remained silent. If they went overboard, he would punish them directly. They were tormented to the point of hovering between life and death and peeling off a layer of skin. They no longer dared to speak carelessly. Just like that, the group quickly arrived at the Yun family's territory. In the northern land of the Purple Cloud world, the place with the most human traffic was usually called the market. In the center of the Yun family, there was a Yunni bazaar similar to the Wanjin Bazaar. Just as they were about to enter Cloudfield Bazaar, Luo Yunxiao's expression suddenly changed, and she stopped in her tracks. Mu Yin and the others turned to look. A black talisman floated out from his body, floated in mid-air, and then slowly burned. Within the lingering black fog, a blurry figure was faintly discernible. Then, a soft and pleasant voice with a sobbing tone sounded. "Xiao, your brother Yuan Yi is in trouble. Come back quickly. Come back and save him. Only you can save him." Luo Yunxiao's thin lips moved, as if he wanted to say something. Then, another low voice sounded impatiently. "Why are you wasting words with him? Don't use the Big Dipper technique and bring him back. Ear can't wait." Chapter 28-25. Muyan was standing next to Luo Yunxiao. She watched as the blood on his face and the warmth in his eyes faded, turning into a desolate heart. She subconsciously called out, "Young martial uncle?" She stretched out her hand as if she wanted to grab something. However, the black smoke from the burning talisman suddenly gushed out and wrapped around Luo Yunxiao. "Young martial uncle!" Muyan shouted and rushed over. However, she only managed to grab a corner of Luo Yunxiao's clothes. He could only watch helplessly as he disappeared right in front of his eyes. Mulu Pavilion. The Saintess has returned. With a series of shouts, the middle door of the Saintess Hall opened and a group of people filed in. Elder Xian Yuan hurried forward and said anxiously, "The Holy Stone has been found." Before he could finish his words, he found that something was wrong. He saw that the 5 Saintesses' hair were all disheveled and their cheeks were swollen. Because they were women, Luo Yunxiao did not hit them hard. However, the slap he sent out in midair contained immortal energy. Mu Yinglan tried her best, but could not make the swelling go away immediately. She could only wait for them to slowly heal. As for Chu Guangquan and the others, they were even worse off. Several of the bones in their bodies were broken, and every one of them was enough to make them unable to walk and suffer so much pain that they wanted to die. The pain of these broken bones could not be healed by musician skills, so they could only endure it. And Chu Guangquan was the most miserable. One of his broken bones was his spine. At this time, he was lying on the bed with grief and indignation, fear and despair. Other people's bones could grow back, but he was likely to be paralyzed in bed for the rest of his life. "Who is it? Who hurt you?" Xian Yuan said angrily. "Is the bastard who stole the Holy Stone really so powerful? Did you get the Holy Stone back?" Mu Yinglan bit her lip and stretched out her hand. A reddish-brown stone was exposed and slowly flew in the direction of the praying god tower. Seeing that the Holy Stone had returned, Xian Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. "What happened? Who hurt Elder Chu like this?" "Xiaoyao School. It's all their fault." Chu Guangquan roared and struggled to get up, but he found that he couldn't feel anything from his neck down. He couldn't move at all. He was filled with grief, indignation, and despair. He couldn't help but shout, "Saintess, great elder, you must avenge me." Yi Yin took a step forward. Covering his swollen cheek with his sleeve, he recounted what had happened outside the unclean abyss today. The more grand elder Xian Yuan listened, the more frightened he became, his face turning green and white. When he hears that the zither that Jun Mayan is using is very likely the lost artifact of Mulu Pavilion, the cry of the ninth heaven crane, his eyes flash. But it was quickly covered by excitement. Is the musician skill that Jun Mayan displayed really that powerful? Absolutely. Yi Yin nodded solemnly. Yishuang and the others were unwilling, but they had to admit it. Whether it's fighting or healing, her musician skills are beyond imagination. Yishuang also described what had happened in the Clearneye Hall. "I always feel that the musician skills displayed by this Jun Mayan are very similar to our Mulu pavilions." Yi Yun said hesitantly, "It's even more powerful than the musician skills inherited from our Mulu pavilion." Chu Guangquan said loudly, "I already said that it's the lost secret skill of our Mulu pavilion. Great elder, as long as we take back these secret skills, the strength of our Mulu pavilion will not be the same as before." Chapter 28-26. Xian Yuan paced back and forth, while the look in his eyes constantly changed. Sometimes excited, sometimes greedy, and sometimes nervous. Regarding the lost secret art of Clean Lu Pavilion, Chu Guangxuan and the others did not know much about it. Xian Yuan was the only one in the entire Clean Lu Pavilion who knew the truth. Clean Lu Pavilion was said to be unrivaled in the musician path for thousands of years. But in fact, it was only 1,000 years ago that they really rose to become a world-famous music doctor. This was all because 1,000 years ago, when the ancestor of Clean Lu Pavilion went to the Woodfern Sea to gain experience, he accidentally picked up a broken cosmos bag. Inside this cosmos bag, there was a cry of the ninth heaven crane, an ice and snow solitude, a holy stone, and a mirage stone that had been mostly worn out. The mirage stones recorded in them were all incomparably mysterious musician skills. The ancestor of Clean Lu Pavilion was originally a musician. After seeing the images recorded in the mirage stone, he was shocked and immediately began to learn. Because of this cosmos bag, Clean Lu Pavilion gradually became a unique music doctor inheritance in the true cultivation continent. But unexpectedly, the damaged mirage stone, after persisting for a few years, turned into powder. Moreover, the musician skills taught inside were too difficult, and it was impossible to master them all in a few years. Therefore, the ancestor of Clean Lu Pavilion could only watch the secret art slip away from his hands with heartache and unwillingness. In the images recorded in the mirage stone, there is a sentence. The images recorded in the mirage stone are only used to support the god musician sect's secret art. Do not be greedy for simplicity. Using it as a reference, it will be difficult to achieve great things. What did this sentence mean? It meant that the secret art recorded in the mirage stone, which shocked Clean Lu Pavilion, was just an empty shell used by others to assist in the cultivation of the real secret art. Even the empty shell was so powerful, not to mention the real secret art. Since then, Clean Lu Pavilion mobilized all of its forces to search the true cultivation continent. They hoped to find the real secret art of the god musician sect. However, the result was in vain. It was not until the ancestor of Clean Lu Pavilion discovered the magical use of the holy stone that he gradually gave up on this idea. But almost all the high-level members of Clean Lu Pavilion knew that their Clean Lu Pavilion had a secret art that was lost outside. If they could retrieve this lost art, then the Cleansing Joy Pavilion would be like adding wings to a tiger, and they would be invincible. Grand Elder Xian Yuan knew more than they did. At this time, he clearly realized that it was a unique skill of the god musicians. What that Jun mind grasps must be the godly musician's secret art that they've been searching for thousands of years. Great Elder Xian Yuan suddenly slaps the table, his face filled with righteous indignation and excitement. I don't know who this Junmu Yin is, but my Mu Lu Pavilion's ancestral secret technique cannot be allowed to fall into the hands of others. The Xiaoyao sect is going too far. They stole the holy stone of the Mu Lu Pavilion, let the blasphemer go, and now they've injured an elder of the Mu Lu Pavilion. They don't even respect the Mu Lu Pavilion. Everyone nodded in agreement. Elder Chu even had tears in his eyes as he said, Grand Elder, you must seek justice for us. You must help Cleansing Lu Pavilion recover their divine artifacts and ultimate arts. Xian Yuan heavily nods, then looks at Jin Lan. Saintess, I wonder where Jun Mayan is now. Jin Lan frowns, not answering for a long time. Only when Xian Yuan urges her does she slowly say, Grand Elder, is what young Master Yin Shao said about the Holy Stone true? Are those blasphemers really innocent? Chapter 28-27. Xian Yuan stares blankly, then says with displeasure, Saintess, what do you mean by that? Don't tell me you believe in an outsider, but not in the ancestors of my Mu Lu Pavilion. Have you forgotten how much hardship my Mu Lu Pavilion had to pay to protect the people of the Horton tribe? Even your mother, Yuan Wei, sacrificed her life to protect this land. Are you questioning the inheritance and glory of my Mu Pavilion for a man? Being scolded, Yuan Lan lowers her head, feeling ashamed in her heart. Great Elder, it's Yuan Lan's fault. Yuan Lan shouldn't have questioned the Mu Pavilion that Mother protected with her life. I will definitely take back the cry of the ninth heaven crane and the lost art. Saying so, she takes out the ice snow solitary, closes her eyes, and gently plucks the strings. Because the entire northern continent is shrouded in the 10,000 Torrents Great Array, and the 10,000 Torrents Great Array is connected to Yuan Lan's soul. Therefore, everything that happens in the 10,000 Torrents Great Array can be transmitted to her sea of consciousness. Yuan Lan opens her eyes, revealing a surprised and perplexed expression. They went to the Yun family's wild cloud bazaar. Moreover, young Master Yun Xiao isn't among them. There's no trace of Luo Yunxiao's aura in the entire array. Hearing this, everyone is pleasantly surprised. The one they originally feared the most was the continent's #1 swordsman, young Master Yun Xiao. And just now, outside the unclean abyss, Luo Yunxiao also showed them what it means to have overwhelming strength. Whether it's the 10,000 Torrents Great Array or the advantage in numbers, they're all useless to him. He only needs to wave his hand, and they won't be able to resist. If Luo Yunxiao had always been by Mayan's side, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven for them to obtain the zither and the lost art. But now, Luo Yunxiao is gone. Only Yuan Lan's heart surges with unspeakable sorrow and sorrow. There's a little satisfaction in her chest that slowly dissipates, leaving only emptiness and loneliness. For the first time in her life, she's moved, and perhaps it's also the only time. Was it going to end in embarrassment and despair, just like that? Yuan Lan closes her eyes, dissolving the heat in them. When she opens them again, there's only callousness and determination left. She looks at Great Elder Xian Yuan and says in a low voice, "The Wild Cloud Bazaar is within the Yun family sphere of influence. This matter requires Great Elder." Before he could finish his words, a figure suddenly rushed in from outside. This person was wearing the deacon uniform of Mu Pavilion, but she was clearly not from the Saint Lady Temple. As soon as he entered, he charged at Grand Elder Xian Yuan. Great Elder, urgent news has come from the Yun family." The newcomer knelt down in front of Xian Yuan, raised his hands high above his head, and handed over a red paper crane. Xian Yuan frowned. He was very unhappy about being disturbed at this time, but Anaxiao was still angry, and she took the paper crane. As soon as the paper crane entered his hand, it turned into an image. A hunchbacked old woman with a head full of white hair appeared above. Her eyes were slightly red, and the wrinkles on her face were slightly trembling from excitement. She said loudly, "First Elder, young Master Ji Feng has returned. He's still alive. Please come back and take a look." Xian Yuan was stunned and only reacted after a long while. Who was the young Master Ji Feng that the old woman mentioned? He could not help but narrow his eyes, revealing a surprised expression. Young Master Ji Feng? Yi Yun pondered for a moment, also revealing a shocked expression. Could it be Yun Ji Feng, the original successor of the Yun family, Great Elder's grandson? But he isn't. Chapter 28. Yi Yun couldn't help but look at Ma Yinwei. The Yun family had a tradition of marrying Mu Pavilion. Elder Xuanyuan's daughter, Xian Menglan, married Yun Zhaoxing, the head of the Yun family. Yun Jifeng was their son, so Yi Yun and the others certainly remembered the name Yun Jifeng. But at the same time, they also remembered that Yun Jifeng should have died more than 10 years ago. At that time, Ma Yinwei and Elder Xian Yuan brought the elites of Mu Pavilion to look for him. Yun Jifeng and his cousin Yun Heng also went with them, who knew that they would never return. After that, the Yun family sent a lot of people to look for him, but they couldn't even find his corpse. Slowly, everyone forgot the existence of Yun Jifeng. Only his mother, who had been by his side all these years, refused to believe that her young master was dead and kept searching for him in the northern continent. However, Xin Yuan had witnessed his grandson's death with his own eyes. But he didn't have time to bring the corpse back, and was thrown off the cliff by the airwave. How could a dead person come back? So when Xin Yuan heard the words, young Master Jifeng, he was stunned for a long time before he reacted. The old woman was talking about his grandson. Great Elder, what's going on? Ma Yinlan was also puzzled. I remember when you and Mother came back, you said that everyone who went with you in that battle was annihilated. Only Mother and you returned with serious injuries. There was also Yun Heng who escaped. Because he was afraid, he didn't enter the battlefield. Xin Yuan frowned. I'll go to the Yun family. He also wanted to know how his grandson, who he had watched die, had come back alive. If he was really alive, where did he go all these years? The people of the Xiaoyao school watched Luo Yunxiao disappear, dumbfounded. After a long time, they came back to their senses. Is little Uncle Master okay? Who the hell are those two people who are talking? Their tone is really disgusting. That's right. Why do they have to be so arrogant and bossy around young martial uncle? Mayan frowns. I don't know what they want Xiao Shishu to do by letting him go back. Young martial uncle wouldn't be injured again, right? She couldn't forget that time in the Starry School. Little Uncle Master suddenly disappeared, and when he came back, his back was badly mutilated. At that time, they also asked who hurt him, but they didn't get an answer. Bastard. If I find out who hurt little martial uncle, I'll definitely skin him alive and pull out his tendons. Lung Yuma recalled the scene back then and gritted her teeth in anger. But now, no matter how worried they were, there was nothing they could do. Just by looking at how that person was able to take Luo Yunxiao away with a talisman, one could tell how strong they were. If they wanted to contend against him now, it would be like an ant trying to shake a tree. Mu Yin took a deep breath. Junior martial uncle, even if we want to interfere, we can't. Right now, let's look for eldest senior brother and Xiao Qi. Everyone nodded. Mu Yin is about to speak when her complexion suddenly changes. He leaped into the air and grabbed at the air in the direction of the window. In the next moment, a figure was pulled out from behind the window lattice in a sorry state and fell to the ground with his neck in his hands. Wenqing Yuan, Mu Yin said slowly, you're quite courageous to actually dare to follow me. Wenqing Yuan's gaze was fixed on her. There was shock, astonishment, disbelief, and unconcealable fear in his eyes. He was in a daze for a long time before he murmured, you actually came out from the uncleanest abyss. Jun Shiyuan, what's your relationship with him? Chapter 28-29. Mu Yin sneers, the strength in her hand suddenly intensifying. Shouldn't I be the one asking you this? What is your relationship with Jun Shiyuan? Cough, cough, cough. When Xing Yuan's throat is choked and he can't breathe. His handsome face instantly turns purple and distorted. He operates his dantian, wanting to mobilize his spiritual power to resist and send a signal to summon his subordinates to rescue him. However, he soon discovers something to his horror. Mu Yan's hand, clutching his throat, seems to be choking all the meridians in his body. Don't even mention resisting. He can't even use a trace of spiritual power. This time, when Xing Yuan is really scared. Miss Jun, calm down, cough, cough. I don't have any bad intentions. He pulls out a smile. Mr. Jun Shiyuan is my benefactor. When I see Miss Jun, I feel cordial. Absolutely, cough, absolutely no bad intentions. Mu Yin says unhurriedly, Jun Shiyuan is your benefactor? It's absolutely true. When Xing Yuan nodded furiously. My saber technique was improved by Mr. Jun. Mu Yin looks at him faintly for a moment, then curls up her lips and lets go. Cough, cough, cough. Air rushes into his throat, causing Wen Xing Yuan to cough violently. After a long while, he gets up from the ground and shows a kind and happy smile to Mu Yin. Miss Jun, may I ask if you are Mr. Jun's daughter? Mu Yin looks at him with a smile that isn't a smile for a long time. Wen Xing Yuan's scalp tingles as he slowly nods. When Xing Yuan's pupils violently contract, then he immediately bursts into a brilliant smile. Great, great. When Mr. Jun left with Miss Jun, it was unknown whether they were alive or dead. I thought that you had met with an accident. I didn't expect that Miss Jun was still alive and so outstanding. I can see Mr. Jun's successor in my lifetime, Even if I die, I can die without regret. As he says this, the rims of his eyes redden. That sincere look, if Mu Yin hadn't met Wen Huanglang first, she might have believed it. However, it seems that Wen Qingyuan still doesn't know that the villagers of Yuanwu village and Wen Huanglang have also come out of the unpurified abyss. Mayan chuckles. If it wasn't for Sir Wen's sincere attitude right now, I would have thought that Sir Wen wanted me dead, which is why he let me enter the unclean abyss. How could that be? Wen Qingyuan said anxiously. Miss June, you must not misunderstand me. I only instructed my subordinates to investigate the whereabouts of the unfettered seven. When they found out that they had been sent into the unclean abyss, they hurriedly sent a message to you. I didn't know anything about this, and I was very worried about it. Then, he looked at Lung Yuma and the others. Luckily, Miss June, you are very capable. You actually managed to save your fellow disciples from the uncleanest abyss. When Wen Qingyuan said this, his eyes were filled with worship and awe. However, from his current behavior, one could not see the slightest bit of malice. After I was separated from Mr. June, I haven't seen him since then. Miss June, how is Mr. June doing now? Let's not talk about my father first. Mu Yin interrupted him and said, there is something I need Mr. Wen's help with. Wen Qingyuan stared blankly, then immediately put on a smile. Miss June, you are Mr. June's daughter, so you are my benefactor. If you have any instructions, as long as I can do it, I will not dare to neglect it. Chapter 28:30. Mu Yin, my eldest senior brother and 7 junior brother were taken away by the Yun family. Can I trouble the listening pavilion to investigate their whereabouts for me? Wen Qingyuan nodded without hesitation. Miss June and the rest of the Xiao Yao sect, please wait in the listening pavilion. I promise I will give you the news in an hour at most. The listening pavilion was an intelligence agency that covered the entire Purple Cloud realm. There was also a branch of the listening pavilion in the Yun family's Wild Cloud Bazaar. Mu Yin and the others sat in a luxurious and elegant pavilion. From time to time, maids would serve exquisite snacks with rich spiritual energy. After the maids left, Lung Yuma finally couldn't help but ask, Junior sister, do you really believe? But before she could finish, she was interrupted by Chu Moli and Mu Yan's deep eyes. Chu Moli raised his teacup and took a sip. Then he said with a light smile, this listening sound pavilion's masked dew is pretty good. You can't even taste it outside. Mu Yin also smiled and put a pastry in her mouth. The tea is too bitter. I think the snack tastes good. Lung Yuma reacted and didn't say anything else. She also laughed and ate. About an hour later, Wen Qingyuan pushed the door open and hurried in. Miss June, he bowed deeply to Mu Yin. I didn't disappoint you. I found the whereabouts of young Master Yun and young Master Lan. The 5 of them immediately stood up. Wen Qingyuan's expression was complicated. I didn't expect that the head of the famous Xiao Yao 7, one-sword mountain Xiyun Ruhan, was actually from the northern continent. Moreover, he was the previous successor of the Yun family, Yin Jifeng. Yin Jifeng again? Mu Yin frowned. What do you mean? Wen Qingyuan was surprised. Miss June, you really don't know? Yin Ruhan is the young master of the Yun family, Yin Jifeng, who went missing more than 10 years ago. He is also the grandson of Elder Xian Yuan and the true successor of the Yun family. Although young Master Yun is still unconscious, even great Elder Xian Yuan has acknowledged his identity. Now the Yun family's master and mistress are wild with joy. Mu Yin and the others looked at each other in disbelief. Even Chu Moli, who seemed to have everything in his grasp, had a blank expression on his face. What about little 7? Ling Yuxing asked. How? With my 7th junior brother, Lanlu? Wen Qingyuan shook his head. I don't know, but it said that other than bringing back young Master Ji Feng, the Yin family also caught a spy who harmed young Master Ji Feng. I heard that the spy has already been locked up in the Yun family's water prison and is being tortured. What? The Yun family of the northern land. Young Master Ji Feng, quickly wake up. Do you know how many years I've been looking for you? The noise by her ear caused Yun Ruhan's consciousness to awaken from the swamp of chaos. He struggled to open his eyes. Soon, an old face full of wrinkles came into view. Master, madam, great elder, come and see. Young Master Ji Feng woke up. Yin Ruhan frowned and struggled to get up from the bed. Fenger, what do you think? Soon, the door to the room was pushed open. A beautiful woman hurried over to the bed and helped him up. Yin Ruhan dodged to the side, vigilantly saying, "Who are you people?" The beautiful woman was startled. Ji Feng, I am your mother. This is your father, brother, and mother. You don't recognize us? Chapter 28:31. Yin Ruhan frowned and looked in the direction the beautiful woman was pointing. The first person she saw was a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and deep eyes. This person's cultivation was extremely high, and he unconsciously emitted a terrifying pressure. But his gaze towards her was filled with concern and nervousness. Standing behind the middle-aged man was a young man who looked somewhat similar to Yin Ruhan. His eyes were slightly lowered, making it difficult to see his expression. Young Master Ji Feng, what's wrong? The old woman tugged at Yin Ruhan nervously. This is the Yin family's patriarch and mistress, your parents. Hurry up and greet them. Yin Ruhan shook his head slowly. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not young Master Ji Feng. As he spoke, he pressed his temples, revealing a somewhat pained expression. He was trying to remember what happened before he fainted. It was as if the blood in his body had suddenly started boiling. Then, his soul was torn apart by a huge force, causing his consciousness to become more and more muddled. In the depths of his heart, an extreme desire for flesh and blood rose up, especially when Luo Yu was by his side. When he saw Luo Yu's white neck, his first reaction was to pounce on it and swallow the blood. Yin Ruhan was scared out of his wits by the desire in his heart. In addition, the tearing force in his soul grew stronger and stronger, and the pain and heat in his body became more and more obvious. Then he lost consciousness. Who are you people? Yin Ruhan looked up at them. Where's this place? Where are my junior brothers and junior sisters? Ji Feng, what's wrong with you? The beautiful woman looked at him in shock. This is the Yun family. I'm your mother, Xian Minglan. Don't you remember us? The old woman cried. Poor young Master Ji Feng. He must have lost his memory, which is why he hasn't returned home for so many years. It's all that wretched villain's fault. He killed so many people from Cleansing Joy Pavilion and harmed young Master Ji Feng. Before she could finish, the door was pushed open again. A thin old man in a blue and white robe pushed open the door and walked in. Minglan, how is Ji Feng? Father. The beautiful woman turned to see who it was. Her eyes couldn't help but redden. Ji Feng doesn't seem to remember anything? Who was it that was so vicious and merciless back then to actually harm Ji Feng? Yin Ruhan couldn't hear the beautiful woman's cries or the comforting words of the others. The moment Yin Ruhan saw First Elder Xin Yuan walk into the room, she heard a loud boom in her ears. All sounds and senses faded away in an instant. His face turned deathly pale like a sheet of paper. He knew Xin Yuan. He also finally knew who Yin Jifeng was. Ji Feng, what's wrong? Young Master Ji Feng, why is your body trembling so badly? Head Elder, quickly treat young Master Ji Feng. Xian Yuan walked to the bedside and took out a set of bells from his cosmos sleeve. The set of bells transformed into a half-meter-tall tower, and with a soft ring, a gentle energy entered Yun Ruhan's body. His complexion slowly improved. Ji Feng. Xian Yuan looked at him deeply. You really don't remember anything? Yin Ruhan remained silent, but her hands, which were hidden in her sleeves, were trembling slightly and tightly clenched into fists. It's okay if you don't remember. After an indescribable silence, Xian Yuan suddenly smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Chapter 28:32. Even if you don't remember anything, you're still my grandson. You're the only son of your father and mother. We won't be wrong about this. Xian Minglan nodded. Although it's been more than 10 years, your appearance hasn't changed much. Also, you have the birthmark on Ji Feng's body. You're my son, Defying. The old woman wiped her tears and said, Young Master Defying, you didn't want to lose your memory. You should blame those who harmed you. Young Master Defying, you've suffered all these years. Xin Yuan smiled again and said with a face full of gratification, Defying, you really are my Xin Yuan's grandson. Even if you lose your memory, you can still make a name for yourself without the help of the Yun family. Ha! Who would have thought that the famous One Sword Mountain Sea, Yin Ruhan, is my grandson? Yin Ruhan looked at his smiling face and the proud faces of Xian Menglan and the others, and didn't say anything. Xin Yuan's eyes darkened, and he said, Defying, since you're the eldest disciple of the Xiaoyao sect and the leader of the 7 disciples of the Xiaoyao sect, the Xiaoyao sect is not an outsider to the northern continent. I think the 7 disciples of the Xiaoyao sect should join the Clean Joy Pavilion or the Yun family. That way, your junior brothers and sisters won't have to waste their time in the carefree sect, which isn't even worth mentioning. Yun Zhaoxing looked around and said, You're right. The little guy you brought back with you is Lan Liu, the 1,000 Hands God Summoner of the 7 disciples of the Xiaoyao sect, right? He doesn't seem to be very friendly to the Yun family, and he doesn't want to cooperate at all. Defying, you should go talk to him. What did you do to little 7? Yin Ruhan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly sat up in bed. He looked at everyone with bloodthirsty and furious eyes. Where's little 7? Everyone was shocked by his sudden outburst. After a while, Yun Zhaoxing said, unhappily, Is this how you talk to your father? Lan Liu hurt the people of the Yun family and the Clean Joy Pavilion. I brought him back and locked him up. What's wrong with that? The old woman also said anxiously, Young Master Defying, don't blame Master. Blame me. I thought it was the Xiao Yao school who made you faint, so I gave the order to attack them. Yin Ruhan took a deep breath and managed to suppress the anxiety and anger in her chest. Where's Xiaoqi? Take me to him. The Yin family's water prison was dark, damp, and cold. Even those with profound cultivation could feel the bone-piercing coldness when walking inside. With the support of the old woman, Yin Ruhan became more and more anxious as they walked down. Xiaoqi had been spoiled since she was young, so how could she adapt to such an environment? After walking for a long time, he finally saw a familiar figure. This one glance caused Yin Ruhan's pupils to constrict. All the heartache, brutality, madness, and killing intent in his body surged up like a tidal wave. Water dungeon, water dungeon. As the name suggested, there was water in the dungeon. Moreover, this wasn't just any water. It was the sky-eroding water that could slowly corrode one's soul and body. Luo Yu was tied to the only stone platform in the middle of the sky-eroding water. His hands were suspended high in the air. His feet were soaked in the sky-eroding water, and his flesh was a bloody mess. There were also countless whip marks and burns on his body. As his body swayed, one could even see the white bones on his back that had been brushed by hot iron. His Xiaoqi. Chapter 28:33. Even if you don't remember anything, you're still my grandson. You're the only son of your father and mother. We won't be wrong about this. Xian Menglan nodded. It's been more than a decade, but your appearance hasn't changed much. Besides, you have the birthmark on Ji Feng's body. You're my son, Ji Feng. The old woman wiped her tears. Young Master Ji Feng, you didn't want to lose your memory. If you want to blame someone, blame those who harmed you. Young Master Ji Feng, you've suffered all these years. Xin Yuan smiled again and said with a face full of gratification, Ji Feng, you really are my Xin Yuan's grandson. Even if you lose your memory, you can still make a name for yourself without relying on the Yun family. Ha ha! Who would have thought that the famous One Sword Mountain Sea, Yin Ruhan, would be my grandson? Yin Ruhan looked at his smiling face and the proud faces of Xian Menglan and the others, but didn't say anything. Xin Yuan's eyes suddenly darkened. Defying, since you're the eldest senior of the Xiaoyao sect and the leader of the 7 disciples, the Xiaoyao sect is no longer an outsider to the northern continent. I think we should let the 7 disciples join the Cleansing Joy Pavilion or the Yun family. That way, Your junior brothers and sisters won't have to waste their time in the carefree sect, which isn't even worth mentioning. Yun Zhaoxing looked around and said, "You're right. The kid you brought back with you is Lan Liu, the thousand-hand god of the 7 disciples, right? He doesn't seem to be very friendly to the Yun family, and he doesn't want to cooperate at all. Ji Feng, you should go talk to him. What did you do to little 7? Yun Ruhan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly sat up on his bed. He looked at everyone present with bloodthirsty and furious eyes. "Where is little 7? Everyone was shocked by his sudden outburst. After a moment of shock, Yun Zhaoxing said unhappily, "Is this how you talk to your father? Lan Liu injured people from the Yun family and the Cleansing Joy Pavilion. What's wrong with me bringing him back?" The old woman also said anxiously, "Young Master Ji Feng, don't blame Master. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I thought it was the Xiao Yao school who made you faint, so I gave the order to attack them." Yin Ruhan took a deep breath and managed to suppress the anxiety and anger in her chest. "Where's Xiao Qi? Take me to him." The Yin family's water prison was dark, damp, and cold. Even those with profound cultivation could feel the bone-piercing coldness when walking inside. With the support of the old woman, Yin Ruhan became more and more anxious as they walked down. Xiao Qi had been spoiled since she was young, so how could she adapt to such an environment? After walking for a long time, he finally saw a familiar figure. This one glance caused Yin Ruhan's pupils to constrict. All the heartache, brutality, madness, and killing intent in his body surged up like a tidal wave. Water dungeon, water dungeon. As the name suggested, there was water in the dungeon. Furthermore, this was no ordinary water. It was the sky-eroding water that could slowly corrode one's soul and body. Luo Yu was tied to the only stone platform in the middle of the sky-eroding water. His hands were suspended high in the air. His feet were soaked in the sky-eroding water, and his flesh was a bloody mess. There were also countless whip marks and burns on his body. As his body swayed, one could even see the white bones on his back that had been brushed by hot iron. His Xiao Qi. Chapter 28:34. His Xiao Qi. The little junior brother he had loved and protected for so many years. Someone had hurt and harmed him like this. Xiao Qi. Yun Ruhan shook off the old woman and leaped towards the central platform. He could not feel the corrosive heat of the sky eroding water at all. The profound iron chains were indestructible. Normal spirit weapons could not break them, let alone bare hands. But Yin Ruhan seemed to have forgotten everything. He just desperately pulled at the profound iron chains, trying to free Luo Yu from the chains. The unconscious youth slowly opened his eyes due to the violent movements. When he saw the familiar face, he blinked his long eyelashes and murmured in a low, hoarse voice, eldest senior brother. I see eldest senior brother. Am I dreaming?" Yin Ruhan choked. "Xiao Qi, don't be afraid. Eldest senior brother will take you away. We'll go find little junior sister. Little junior sister will definitely be able to cure you." Liu smiled softly. "Yes, I'm not afraid. I know eldest senior brother, 6 senior sister. All of you will definitely find me. I'm not afraid at all, and I don't feel any pain. So, eldest senior brother, can you not cry?" Yin Ruhan finally realized that his face was covered in tears at some point. The hand that was untying the profound iron chains was wet and cold. He could not even hold the chains. Yin Ruhan wiped away the tears on his face before turning to Yun Zhaoxing. He said sternly, "Put Xiao Qi down." Yun Zhaoxing was already frowning, his face full of displeasure. Now that he heard Yin Ruhan's unceremonious shout, he could not take it anymore. "Ji Feng, do you know what you're saying?" Yun Heng, who had been standing respectfully behind Yun Zhaoxing with his head bowed, suddenly looked up. He looked at Yin Ruhan accusingly. "Ji Feng, how can you speak to your uncle like this? Lan Luoyu is just an outsider. The Yin family is your family, especially Mother Lin. How much has she suffered all these years to find you? She was just injured by your so-called junior brother a few days ago. Instead of caring for her, You yell at us for an outsider. Do you think this is proper? Yun Heng was the son of Yun Zhaoxing's elder brother. Because his parents died when he was young, he had always been raised by Yun Zhaoxing and his wife. After Yun Jifeng disappeared, he naturally became the successor of the Yun family. Hearing him scold Yun Ruhan with reason, Yun Zhaoxing nodded in satisfaction. On the other hand, the more he looked at Yun Jifeng, his own son, the angrier he got. Even Xian Menglan revealed a disappointed expression. Jifeng, hurry up and apologize to your father. Yun Ruhan completely ignored them. He glanced at Yun Heng and narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. His attitude made Yun Zhaoxing even more annoyed. But before he could flare up, he heard Xian Yuan chuckle softly and say, all right, all right. It wasn't easy for Ji Feng to come back. Why must you be so harsh on the child? Not to mention, he has lost his memory. I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose, Xian Yuan said as he walked towards Yun Ruhan. His gaze swept across Luo Yu, who was still hanging by the black iron, and a look of greed and excitement flashed across his eyes. Ji Feng, you must know that even if you lost your memory, the fact that blood is thicker than water will not change. Compared to the Xiaoyao sect, we are your real family. I heard that Lan Liu summoned 2 soul orbs under Yun Heng's control. One is the divine beast by Zhe, the other is the divine beast by Feng. Chapter 28:35. Hearing Xian Yuan's words, even Yun Zhaoxing, Xian Menglan, and Yun Heng's eyes lit up. Xian Yuan revealed a kind smile. If I remember correctly, the divine beast by Zhe is a soul pearl that only the Lan royal family can inherit, right? As for the divine beast by Feng, I've never even heard of it. Ji Feng, the background of this junior brother of yours is somewhat fishy. However, since he's your junior brother, to us, the Cleansing Joy Pavilion, and the Yun family, he's naturally one of us. Even if there's a problem with his identity, or if he's taken the Lan royal family's soul pearl, we're still willing to protect him. Of course, the premise is that he must first activate the soul pearl for us to see. Then we can decide how to deal with it. Yun Zhaoxing nodded heavily. That's right, Ji Feng quickly let him summon the divine beast by Feng. Yun Ruhan only felt a buzz in his head, and his heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. It was for the soul pearl. These people wanted to force Xiao Qi to summon the soul pearl so that they could take it for themselves. That's why they tortured him like this. Yun Ruhan's cold eyes swept across everyone present. He had always been the most gentle and steady senior brother in the Xiaoyao sect. He was the calmest and most steady one. But at this moment, the monstrous anger in his heart made him want to kill everyone in front of him. Senior brother, don't be angry. I really don't hurt, really. It just looks ugly. Actually, it's just a superficial wound. When 6 senior sister comes, I'll immediately be full of vigor. A hoarse voice sounded in his ears. He was clearly so weak, but he forced himself to speak in a joking tone. Yun Ruhan only felt his heart ache, and tears almost gushed out of his eyes. He calmed himself down and looked coldly at the Yun family. You make it sound so nice, but don't you just want to take Xiao Qi's soul pearl? Even Xian Yuan's face became a bit ugly when his thoughts were exposed. Xian Menglan's face darkened. Ji Feng, how can you talk to your grandfather like that? Have you forgotten how much your grandfather loved you? Isn't he just a junior brother of a small sect? What right does he have to have the divine beast soul pearl? How much power could he unleash from the soul pearl? The Yun family and the Cleansing Paradise Pavilion are different. As long as we can control the soul orb and summon the divine beast, the Yun family's status in the northern continent will completely surpass the Ning family. Yun Zhaoxing said coldly, if you really feel that it's unfair in your heart, I'll take out this soul pearl and fuse it into your body, and you can control it. In any case, the Yun family will be handed over to you sooner or later. Hearing this, Yun Heng suddenly clenched his fists tightly. Viciousness and dissatisfaction flashed through his eyes. Yun Ruhan sneered, what if I refuse? He took a deep breath and slowly circulated the spiritual energy in his body. With a move of his divine sense, a sword light flew over from afar and landed in his hand. This sword was slender and long. Its entire body was snow white. As soon as he injected his spiritual energy into it, it emitted a chilly aura. It was the supreme grade divine artifact that Mu Yin had obtained from the Woodfern's secret realm, the Ice Soul Sword. The Ice Soul Sword had already recognized Yun Ruhan as its master. As long as the distance wasn't too far, he could summon it at any time. When he had just woken up, his body was weak and the circulation of his spiritual energy was blocked. His divine sense couldn't connect with the Ice Soul Sword. Thus, he had been thinking of ways to regulate his breathing. Now, he had finally gathered enough spiritual energy. The Ice Soul Sword in Yun Ruhan's hand slashed in the air. Chapter 28:36. With a clang, the black iron chain that was as thick as a wrist broke in an instant. Yun Ruhan picked up the tottering Luo Yu and carried him on her back. The Ice Soul Sword pointed at the crowd in front of him and said loudly, "Move aside, evil creature. Do you know what you're doing?" Yun Zhaoxing was furious. "I've already said that I'll give you the soul beads I took out. Isn't that enough? What else do you want?" "I don't want anything," Yun Ruhan said word by word. "I just won't allow anyone to hurt Xiao Qi." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung the Ice Soul Sword in the air. Crack, crack, crack. In a split second, a bone-chilling frost covered the entire water dungeon. Even the sky-eroding water on the ground had turned into a thick layer of ice. The guards of the Yun family, who did not have a high level of cultivation, immediately let out blood-curdling screams as their feet were directly frozen to the ground. Yun Ruhan brandished her sword a second time. A fierce wind mixed with ice and frost howled, and a blizzard descended. This time, even Yun Zhaoxing and the others were caught off guard and were blown back several steps by the blizzard. The originally impenetrable water prison of the Yun family only needed 2 strikes to open up a passage. This was the supreme grade divine artifact, the Ice Soul Sword. This was Yun Ruhan of the Carefree sect. It was a long time before Yun Zhaoxing regained his composure. He couldn't help but be shocked and angry. "Seal off the Yun family. Activate it. We cannot let those 2 escape." After Yun Ruhan brought Luo Yu out of the water dungeon, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he quickly returned to the room he had woken up in and started searching. Sure enough, he soon found his clothes and storage ring. Inside the storage ring were the pills, talismans, and formation plates that Mu Yin had prepared for every member of the Xiaoyao sect. Yun Ruhan only had time to stuff a yang rejuvenation pill into Luo Yu's mouth. The wooden door of the room shattered with a loud bang. Yun Zhaoxing, Xian Menglan, and the others stood outside the house with gloomy expressions. Only the old woman who had brought Yun Ruhan back to the Yun Manor was still waving her hands anxiously. "Master, madam, this is young Master Jifeng. You guys mustn't make a move. There must be some misunderstanding here." "Young Master Jifeng, you quickly explain clearly." Yun Zhaoxing fiercely swung his hand and snapped. "Vile spawn, when are you going to stop messing around? Hurry up and hand him over. Do you really want to force me to fight you?" Xian Minglan held back the enraged Yun Zhaoxing and said earnestly, "Jifeng, even if you don't remember anything, you're still our son, and blood is thicker than water. Could it be that we would harm you? Hand him over to us first. We can discuss how to deal with your junior brother later." Yun Ruhan took a deep breath and said coldly, "I'm not your son, Yun Jifeng, and I will never hand Xiao Qi over to anyone." All right. Yun Zhaoxing's chest violently heaved up and down, and his face flushed red. "Since you refuse to come to your senses, then I will pretend that my son died more than a decade ago. Today you have to teach this Lan Luoyu, even if you don't want to." As he spoke, Yun Zhaoxing suddenly pulled out a pair of maces and swung them out. This pair of beasts was called the Divine Beasts. It was the only quasi-divine weapon that the Yun family possessed. Only the Yun family patriarch was allowed to use it. The 8-edged swords looked like 2 short rods. But once spiritual energy was injected into them, they turned into 2 long snakes that looked like swords and whips whizzing towards Yun Ruhan. Yun Ruhan stuffed a yang rejuvenation pill into her mouth. She didn't have time to refine it, so she blocked with her sword. Chapter 28:37. The spiritual power violently collides, and Yun Ruhan's whole body flies dozens of meters away, directly smashing through the rear window and falling into the courtyard. In midair, he's already spitting out a large mouthful of blood. But just as he's about to hit the ground, he instinctively turns around, letting himself fall face first onto the ground. Eldest brother, Luo Yu screams, struggling to climb down from his back. Yun Ruhan takes out a binding immortal rope from his storage ring and firmly ties Luo Yu to his back. Eldest brother, quickly put me down, Luo Yu urgently says. Six Sisters Yang Restoration pill has already taken effect. I can fight with you. Yun Ruhan glances at his already bloody and bony legs. Without another word, he rides his sword and flies towards the distant mountain peak. He hasn't even recovered half of his strength. He's absolutely no match for Yun Zhaoxing and Xian Yuan. Evil creature, do you think you can escape? Yun Zhaoxing roars, glaring fiercely at the old woman. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and activate the great 10,000 torrent formation. The old woman's face is full of tears, shaking her head incessantly. Master, that's young Master Jifeng, your own son. You can't hurt him. Shut up. Useless trash. Yun Zhaoxing kicks out, sending the old woman flying. So what if he's my own son? As long as he betrays the Yun family and obstructs the expansion of my Yun family. Even if he's my own son, Yun Zhaoxing, will still kill him. What's more, even without him, Yun Heng can still become a qualified master. Yun Heng's eyes flash with ecstasy, and he quickly says, Uncle, Aunt, I won't let you down. But right now, we still have to find Cousin Jifeng. I think he's so rebellious now because he lost his memory. As long as he recovers his memory, I believe he'll know where he went wrong today. As he speaks, he lowers his eyes, concealing the murderous intent in his eyes. Everyone in this group of people is Yun Jifeng's nominal relative. But the only one who truly cares about Yun Jifeng's safety is an old woman who has no blood relationship with him. Xian Yuan lightly snorts. Does my Mulu Pavilion's great 10,000 torrents formation need a servant to activate it? Jun Mayan's godly musician's secret technique is certainly tempting. Baze's soul pearl wasn't any weaker. Xian Yuan looked at the two figures flying into the sky with greed in his eyes. At the same time, he raised his hand, and the set of bells flew out, producing a tinkling sound in the air. Soon, the earth shook violently, and countless strands of energy extended from the void. It wrapped around Yun Ruhan and Luo Yu like a spiderweb. Jifeng, it's not too late for you to turn back now. Xian Yuan said in a clear voice. Otherwise, if you're injured by the great array of 10,000 tortures, I can't guarantee whether your divine soul will be damaged or your cultivation will fall. Yun Ruhan glanced in Xian Yuan's direction. Under his proud and arrogant gaze, he threw an array disc into the sky. The formation plate buzzed in the air, then emitted a blinding white light. When the white light dissipated, there was nothing above, not even a shadow of a person. The attacks triggered by the great 10,000 torrents formation also retreated powerlessly because they could not find their target. What happened? Where are they? What was that? Xian Yuan's face was livid. He gritted his teeth and said, Teleportation array. That's a small random teleportation formation disk. Chapter 28:38. How could it be? How could they have a random transmission array disk? That's a rare array disk that can't even be found in the Tianguang Ruins market. Yes, in a moment of life and death, Yun Ruhan activated the random transmission array disk that Mu Yin gave him. This kind of array disk was not of a high level and required very little energy, but there were very few people in the world who could draw it. But Mu Yin had one under her command, Bai Yang. After joining the Nether Flame Army, Bai Yang had powerful resources to back him up, and his attainments in arrays improved by leaps and bounds. The random transmission array disk that he drew was also incomparable to the previous one. Bai Yang had asked Ru Yin to send a lot of random transmission array disks to Mu Yin. Mu Yin thought it was interesting, so she gave 2 to everyone in the Xiao Yao sect. But because the Xiao Yao sect's purpose had never been to escape, so the 7 of them quickly forgot about the array disk. Who knew that today it would become a life-saving straw for Yun Ruhan and Luo Yu? Search. Even if we have to turn over this mountain, we must find this evil creature for me. The distance that the random transmission array disk can teleport is limited. They definitely can escape from this green feather mountain. Wang Yin Bazaar. Young master, are you asking about this strange phenomenon in the snow demon forest? As far as I know, it was the Lung family's ancestor who ascended to the Xiaoxian continent. In our Xiaoxian continent, there hasn't been an ascended cultivator for many years. However, the Lung family's ancestor is at the top of the green sky list. If he can't ascend, then it's even more impossible for others. Ning Su walked out of the listening sound pavilion and looked up at the direction of the snow demon forest, frowning slightly. If he was not wrong, that aura broke through the barrier of space. But it didn't lead to the Xiaoxian continent, but to the floating island. Is the Zither player in the Clear Night Hall really one of the Xiao Yao 7, fatally beautiful killing god, Zhu Muyin? It's absolutely true. This news came from the listening sound pavilion. I saw with my own eyes how she treated the meridian atrophy in the Clear Night Hall. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful musician in the outside world. She's powerful, but unfortunately, because she's too powerful, she offended Mulu Pavilion. Isn't she now being thrown into the unclean abyss? Ning Su's expression changed. With a wave of his hand, the person who had spoken was dragged in front of him. What did you say? Jun Mayan was sent to the unclean abyss. A powerful pressure spread out. The person who was caught trembles in fear. He promptly nods. Yes, yes. The day before yesterday, everyone in the Clear Night Hall knew that because Jun Mayan offended Mu Lugu, she has already been transported to the unclean abyss. Ning Su swung his arm fiercely and flung him to the side. The anxiety in his heart made him rush toward the direction of the unclean abyss as fast as lightning. There were 2 ways to enter the unclean abyss. The other was the Horton tribe and the northern continent's unique teleportation portals. The other way was to enter from the mountain path at the end of the snow phantom forest. Ning Su quickly arrived at the mountain path that Mu Yin and the others had used to come out of the unclean abyss. This place had long since been deserted, but the traces of the battle remained. Ning Su crouched down and touched the sword mark that Mu Yin had made with the 7 absolute sword. He breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Mayan should have come out of the uncleanest abyss alive. Besides, she wasn't the only one who came out alive. There were other people from the Xiaoyao school. But very quickly, Ning Su frowned again. The unclean abyss had always been known as a place where one could only enter but not leave. How could Mu Yin come out safely? Chapter 2839. How could Mu Yin come out safely? Just like that person back then, while he was in a trance, suddenly a dark light flashed in the distant sky. A powerful energy fluctuation faintly transmitted over, startling Ning Su. He instantly threw the thoughts in his mind to the back of his mind. That energy fluctuation contained the aura of death and the power of immortals. Not something that a cultivator from the Xiaoxian continent could master. Who was that person? Without hesitation, Ning Su immediately soared up and flew in the direction of the surging energy. Green Feather Mountain. You guys go to the left side, we'll go to the right side. Understood? Understood. Yin Ruhan slowly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the sound. At this time, the spiritual power that he could circulate in his dantian was still less than half. He had only absorbed 30% of the effects of the Yang reversion pill. But he got up without hesitation, carried Luo Yu, who was still adjusting her breathing, and walked in the opposite direction of the sound. Luo Yu's injuries were worse than he had expected. In order to make Luo Yu activate the soul orb, the Yun family had used all kinds of torture. That torture was not only aimed at the body, but also at the soul. Mu Yan's yang reversion pill could quickly heal external wounds, but the sky-eroding water was still in Luo Yu's body, and the damage to the soul couldn't be reduced. One could imagine how much pain Luo Yu had been in all this time without making a sound. Eldest senior brother. A low voice came from behind. Yin Rahan didn't stop and said softly, "Shao Qi, continue to adjust your breathing. Don't worry, we'll meet up with everyone soon." Luo Yu lay on his back and said softly, "Eldest senior brother, I think this scene is a little familiar. Did you carry me like this before?" Yin Ruhan stopped and almost blurted out, You remember? Remember what?" Luo Yu was puzzled. Did eldest senior brother really carry me like this before? Yin Ruhan forced himself to maintain a calm expression and said lightly, "Have you forgotten? Master, and I've taken care of you since you were little. Is it that strange for eldest senior brother to carry you?" Luo Yu was silent and didn't speak. Was it not strange? But he felt that something was different. He had a vague memory in his mind. It seemed to be in the same dense forest. Even the moonlight could not shine through the layers of leaves. He couldn't even see his fingers in front of him, but there were countless footsteps and shouts behind him. Luo Yu remembered whose back she was lying on, listening to the rapid breathing and the sound of shoes stepping on fallen leaves and mud. It was so fast that it looked as if it was a mad dash. The feeling in that blurry memory was very similar to what he was feeling now. But why couldn't he remember? Found it. It's here. Found them. Quick, send the signal. Luo Yu was lost in her thoughts when a few exclamations sounded. Yin Ruhan's expression changed. She no longer cared about concealing herself. Carrying Luo Yu on her back, she flew into the air. However, before he could fly far, he was stopped by a group of over 100 cultivators. The one in the lead was precisely Yun Jifeng's cousin, Yin Heng. "Jifeng, why are you doing this?" Yin Heng stepped on the treetops and landed lightly in front of Yin Ruhan and Luo Yu. He said with a half-smile, "Isn't he just a little junior brother from a lousy sect? So what if he's dead? What does that have to do with you? If you hand him over, uncle and aunt will naturally forgive you. Don't you think so?" Chapter 2840. Yin Rahan's gaze swept across the hundreds of cultivators who had surrounded him and Luo Yu, and he smiled coldly. Half of these cultivators were at the leaving aperture stage. More than a dozen of them were at the 8th level of leaving aperture. The rest were all at the peak of nascent soul. It could be said that the hundreds of cultivators who had appeared now were all of higher cultivation than Yin Ruhan and Luo Yu. At this time, these hundreds of people had surrounded Yin Ruhan and Luo Yu, leaving no space for him to escape. There was even a murderous intent in the air. Clearly, they did not want to leave him any way out. Even though they had such a formation, Yun Heng's expression was even more amiable. It was as if he was really advising his cousin to mend his ways. "Jifeng, don't be stubborn. Come, give Lan Luo Yu to me. Brother will take you back to the Yun family now. Don't worry. If uncle blames you, I will definitely plead for you." Yin Ruhan laughed coldly and was about to speak. Suddenly, a shout of joy came from afar. Young Master Jifeng, great, you're fine? I finally found you." It was the old woman with the compass. She quickly came in front of Yin Jifeng and stood in front of him and Yin Heng. "Young Master Heng, you must not harm young Master Jifeng. Just now, Master and Madam were just angry, but in the end, only young Master Jifeng is Master's biological son. If you hurt him, Master and Madam will definitely not let it go." The old woman's words made Yun Heng's expression twist, but the old woman did not care about him. She turned to Yin Ruhan and said agitatedly, "Young Master Jifeng, everything can be discussed. If you really don't want to hurt little junior brother, we can also plead with Master and Madam. Mother, I've searched for you for so many years. Everyone else thought you were dead. Only I believe that my young Master Jifeng would not die. Don't make me worry, okay?" As she spoke, the old woman's eyes reddened, and she reached out to Yin Ruhan. Yin Ruhan's eyes showed a trace of guilt. Just as she was about to speak, Her expression suddenly changed, and she unsheathed the ice soul sword. With a clang, the icy blade knocked away the hidden weapon flying from the old woman's back. However, he was still a step too late. The ice soul sword deflected 3 of the hidden weapons, but the remaining 2 accurately pierced the old woman's back. Puff! The old woman spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight down from the sky, hanging on the branch. She turned to look at Yun Hung in disbelief. "Young Master Hung Yi, why?" Yun Hung laughed. "Mother Lin, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything. Wasn't the one who attacked you just now clearly Yin Jifeng?" The old woman's body kept trembling. She wanted to take out her flute to attack, but she soon discovered that her fingers had turned purple. This was a symptom of being poisoned. "Why do you want to kill me?" Yin Ruhan sneered. "Of course it's because you want to stop him from silencing me." Yun Heng's eyes darkened, but the smile on his lips deepened. "Yin Jifeng, you really didn't lose your memory. Since you didn't lose your memory, why did you pretend to lose it in front of Uncle?" Yin Ruhan replied indifferently, "I've never feigned amnesia. Because I'm not Yin Jifeng at all." "What?" The old woman was shocked and looked at Yin Ruhan in shock. "Young Master Jifeng, what nonsense are you saying? How can you not be young Master Jifeng?" Chapter 28:41. The birthmark on your body, your appearance, I would never mistake it for someone else. If you are not young Master Jifeng, then where's my young master? Yun Ruhan's cold gaze landed on Yun Hung as he said slowly, "Your young Master Jifeng was killed by this person in the Snow Demon Forest 12 years ago." Yun Hung frowned and looked for a long while with a serious expression. Then he laughed softly. "Actually, when you were brought back by this old fellow, I found it strange. That year in the Snow Demon Forest, I saw you die with my own eyes, so I threw you into the abyss of uncleanliness. You should have been dead already. Why are you still alive?" "So Yin Jifeng." "Oh no, Yin Ruhan of the 7 carefree disciples. Who are you?" Yin Ruhan ignored him and jumped down, landing next to the old woman. He took out a pill and fed it to her. "Look after Shao Qi for me." The old woman watched dazedly as Yin Ruhan placed Long Liu next to her, almost forgetting to swallow the pill. When Yin Ruhan was about to stand up, she screamed, "If you are not young Master Jifeng, then who are you? Where is young Master Jifeng? What do you want to do?" Yin Ruhan brushed away the grass on his clothes and bent down slightly. He whispered in the old woman's ear, "Look after Shao Qi for me. I'm going to fulfill Yin Jifeng's last wish, to seek justice for him 12 years ago. Think of it as the price I must pay for borrowing his body." Finishing, he flew into the air and hovered in front of Yun Hung. The old woman's eyes widened as she sat where she was in disbelief, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Yin Ruhan, what would he mean just now? He said young Master Jifeng is already dead. He said he was going to seek justice for young Master Jifeng 12 years ago. He said this was the price he had to pay for borrowing this body." An inconceivable term floated into the old woman's mind. Possession. Her young Master Jifeng had been possessed by someone. How was this possible? Wasn't this kind of evil and demonic path forbidden by the entire cultivation continent? If the old woman thought of this, Yin Hung naturally thought of it as well. His previously smug face was now filled with shock. "You took over Yin Jifeng's body? 12 years ago, at the bottom of the cliff in the Snow Ghost Forest, in the unclean abyss, the only person who could possess Yin Jifeng's body is you. Who are you?" The ice soul sword in Yun Ruhan's hand trembled. The second layer of the mountain sea domain was unleashed. A dense, icy cold chi spread out in the surroundings. The dense forest below was covered in a thick layer of frost. Only the place where Luo Yu and the old woman stood seemed to be protected by something. There were no traces of frost. "Want to know who I am?" Yin Ruhan said slowly. "Then go to the Yellow Springs and ask the real Yunji Peak." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his ice soul sword. Yin Hung never thought that the situation would turn out like this. He gathered all his trusted subordinates and wanted to secretly kill Yin Jifeng in high spirits. These subordinates had been carefully cultivated by him for many years. Every single one of them was sent to the altar to experience many baptisms. Therefore, even though they were not old, their cultivation was not lower than peak nascent soul. On the surface, these people were the Yun family subordinates, but in reality, they had long been subdued by Yun Hong and became his private soldiers. After all these years, everyone had tacitly agreed that Yun Hong would inherit the Yun family. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.